So I then started the following Monday, trading between 2 and 5 million quid a day in turnover with these guys. At this point, obviously, things were getting out of control with regards to the safety of my family. So I had to hire what are called close quarter bodyguards. If anybody sees you with this guy, they're going to know you're mafia, and nobody's going to touch you. There's going to be an effing problem with those guys there. They're plotting against you. There's a plot. It's a conspiracy. I'm like thinking, oh my Lord, what's going on here? Yeah? And they're like, what do you mean? We're just dropping off the motorbikes and all this. He's like, open the effing case. They're pointing the guns at my head, and this is the most scared I've ever been in my life. I'm there in the orange jumpsuit. This place is an absolute shock horror to look at. There's no windows, there's just bodies everywhere, there's no beds.
One of my favourite, perhaps my all-time favourite Banged Up Abroad episode was Chris Parnell. 2009 it came out, banged up in Indonesia. This guy went up against the gangs and got brutalised throughout, so much so he was laid out on the slab in the medical unit. They classified him as dead, and his spirit leaves his body and he looks down at the table and comes back to life. Never seen anything like it before. By the time he gets out, he's missing an eye, he's got all kinds of injuries. I've always wanted to interview someone who's been in prison in Indonesia. So Giles has done 5 years in Indonesian prison. He's got a hard-hitting, harrowing story he's going to tell us today. Since he got out, he has faced challenges to get his life back on track. Some institutions, charities that should have been helping him more quickly, the help wasn't forthcoming. So you're going to hear at the very end how you can contact Giles, support him, and give him some help. But we like to start out in the middle of the action before we go back to the backstory. And huge thank you first to Giles for coming on. Earlier, we were talking about a situation whereby someone hadn't paid their debt in prison.
Yes.
That didn't end well, did it?
It didn't. So I was originally housed in the famous Kerobokan prison in Bali, Indonesia. There's been a couple of books over the years that are very famous that have come out. One is called Hotel K, and the other one's called Snowing in Bali. And I'd actually read these before going into the prison system, not in anticipation of doing that, but just as because they're famous books, and I was in Indonesia, etc. Anyway, the entire prison is based off the shabu trade, and you've got up to 1,500 prisoners that are all shabu addicts, all housed in the same prison, and the corruption there is beyond belief. And you've got some of the biggest shabu dealers in Asia, all under one roof, all plying their trade. And I believe I'm correct in saying about 80% of the drugs on the island are sold from within that prison. So in the prison, they run a credit system for some of the prisoners, which is called going on bond, which means having credit. And the general rules are that you've got 48 hours to pay once you have purchased your drugs. So the prison's made up of different blocks that are all named after different areas in Bali, and each block has its own head of the block that runs the block, installs all the discipline, etc., etc., etc. So I think there are only ever 12 guards on duty in there. So, and it's heavily gang run. It's very, very heavy gang run.
Who are the gangs first?
So the two main gangs in Bali are the Lasker and the Baladika.
And what differentiates them?
Basically loyalty to the head of the organisation. I think it's I'm correct. I think I might be correct in saying it is mainly religion based, and the Lascar is certainly Bali Hindi. Yeah, although they have Muslims, etc. There has since been a bit of a gang war, and they've kind of joined forces together. But they're distinguished by the tattoos on their hands, so everything is done by the hand of the Lascar, and the symbol of which is the triple bladed medieval weapon. Wow. Yeah. So things that they do, or any punishments that are given out, they will photograph it, and they will photograph with their hand in there to show that it's been done by the hand of the Lascar. So in the individual blocks, which is run by the head of the block, and he has a relationship with the police officer that's responsible for that block, and they will install the discipline, etc. And I will say actually that the gang run blocks are much safer than the non-gang blocks, because the people in the non-gang blocks just feel like they can do whatever they want, and there's no sort of hierarchy or leadership that they have to follow orders from. In the gang blocks, if the head of the block says you're doing this, everybody does that, because they're very fearful of the outcomes. So in the blocks, they're kind of they're built in a square shape, and in the middle of the block is the hall, or what they call the aula, and around the perimeter of that are all the cells. But the cells are converted into what they call apotheks, which is Indonesian or Balinese for pharmacy. And what they are drugs, drug shops. And the main drug of choice in there is shabu. And they are all pretty much shabu addicts. And they're like, they have baristas in them. You go in, you sit down, they'll serve you coffee, a drink, they'll get you your bong out, they'll ask you whether you're long-sighted or short-sighted, determine the length of all of the equipment, but then also they will play their apothec games as well, where they will try and rip you off whilst you're in there, with the fans and the wind blowing and all sorts of nonsense and distraction techniques, etc. It's like a game to them, because obviously shabu can be mentally disorientating.
Did you try the shabu?
I did.
What was your first experience of it like?
So I used to be a very heavy user of white, and then when I got into the prison system, I realised that their whole culture, their whole way of life, and their hierarchy and how to get things done was based around shabu. And certainly if you wanted something doing, or if you wanted something paying for something, or for people to clean your cell, you had to ask 3 questions. Do you want paying in makan, roko, or shabu, or a combination of all 3? Makan's food, roko cigarettes, and shabu is obviously drugs. And 100% of the time they would answer shabu. So I felt it was a curiosity to me, particularly with the culture and their spiritual side that they have, particularly with their religion in Bali, that this was a big part of their religion as well. And certainly it was a way of having authority in there, being able to keep harm away, and being able to keep friends, and also to get things done. And so yes, I did, and I not only tried it, but I thought I would fully explore the ins and outs of it, because from a bule or foreigner's point of view, this is something that you would never, ever, ever see if you were on holiday in Bali, or indeed that you lived in Bali like myself. And it's a whole subculture there. And I think I'm correct in saying about 15% of the population are shabu addicts, and about up to 30% of them use it on a daily basis. Wow. And so I wanted to understand it, and I wanted to not have it control me, but I wanted to be able to move around and get through my life there more easily. And so that was a way of doing it, because that is 100% all they are interested in all day, every day. So these apotheks that they give out the credit in, obviously there are prison wars, if you like, to take control of the shabu trade within the prison, because these guys are also working in hand with the authorities on the outside, and there are big drug deals going on the outside, etc. So at this particular point, I was in the Lasca block. I was the first boule that they'd ever had in that block, and it was a dark block, mate. It was incredibly effing hard work in there, and even other prisoners in the prison system were afraid to go in this particular block. But I had done a deal with the head of that block, who actually romanced me to come into the block because he thought I would be good for it, mainly monetarily. And so I did a deal with him that he would protect me, and I paid him a one-off fee when I got in there. I said, listen, I'm just going to give you this lump, and that means that you look after me for the entire time that I'm in there. And he was the biggest bad guy in there. So obviously, my train of thought on that was, he has a reputation, and they do actually honour that in terms of, if word got out that he had not kept his word with me, then it wouldn't look good for him, and it would cause him a lot of problems. So I played on that in order to have his support and make sure that I wasn't messed around too much whilst I was in there. The cells, a normal cell, could be split up into either 3 or 4 cells, and they would split a cell halfway as well. So downstairs you could just about stand up, but then if you go upstairs, there was about 3 or 4 foot of space, and that was your living area. So you're kind of crawling around a lot of the time, and these things are like rabbit warrens, right? I mean, I was amazed none of them went up like a cinder block, to be honest, all the time that I was in there. So he was head of the block, and he had his own apothec in his cell with another, with his cohort, if you like, his second in charge. And I would be invited up there every day for makan, because they take that very seriously. Everybody's sitting down, eating together, etc. And that's actually part of the process of smoking shabu as well. You eat your makan together, and then you smoke the shabu together round in a circle, and that's your family, and then everybody does their thing. But these things were crazy, mate. They've got CDJ decks in there. There were 3 sound systems in my block that would put a sound system at Notting Hill Carnival to shame, right? And they're paying their monthly dues to the police officers in charge of their block, so they can do whatever the F they like, basically, right? And so he had his little room at the back there, and the second in charge had his one there, and the 4 area was their little apothec. And they have boys in there that are in charge of serving the baristas. They're in charge of serving everyone in there, giving them drinks, giving them the shabu, giving them the bongs, etc. Meanwhile, the laser lights are going, the decks are going, plus everyone's putting on all their ceremonial dress to go to the temples, come back from the temple. Absolute craziness. And so one day after lunch, they said, right, someone gets sent to my room as per normal, and Giles, come and see Ajit. Ajit means king, yeah? And my nickname when I was in there was actually Ajit Boule, which is Boule is foreigner, yeah? Because I didn't want my name to be used with anything. I was so scared of everything, because every single purchase of drugs, every single thing is all written down in a book. And that book, of course, is looked at by the authorities. They can see who's paid, who hasn't paid as well, and then they will make sure that individual pays, etc. So I didn't want my name associated with anything, so they gave me the name Ajit Boulay. Anyway, so one day after the lunchtime count, which is called appel, I was called up to his room, and on the speaker system, there's a large speaker system in there that would drive you nuts. For days, we've been hearing Joker, Joker, Joker this, Joker that. Now, Joker was a big shabu dealer from, I think, Jakarta. I might be wrong on that. But Mr. Joker, in the other block, he too also had a nice apothec and his own room and DJ decks and all this sort of thing. And I go up there and Ajit says, Giles, you're coming with us. And I was like, why, what's going on? He said, Joker has Bond. And he gets his pistol out. And I'm in prison, right? And this is an effing inmate with a pistol. And then I look to my right, and there's the other 2IC. He's also got a gun. And I'm like, right, this is a bit nuts. And he's gathered all of his security guys, yeah, because they all have their own security teams for each apothec, their own debt collectors or whatever, that are normally huge units, all covered in tattoos, and they're all off their heads on shabu, blah, blah, blah. And they go, Gillies, come with us. I go, where are we going, Ajit? He goes, Joker has Bond, we must go. So we go down through the hatch, right, down into the bottom part of the cell, outside the front of the block, and I'm walking along with these huge units, the head of the Lascar in the prison there, and his 2IC, they've got pistols tucked down their belts, and I'm thinking, oh my Lord, what is going on here? As we approach the other block, their head of security comes out, as is the custom with this lot, and says they have a bit of a chat. Why are you coming in here? Because these guys do not go into one another's blocks. Now, the only valid reason why one can enter another block is because there's a bond in there that they need to retrieve the funds. So he has a word with the security, a chap called Nico, and Nico, in you go. In we go to Joker's cell. Boom! They blast up into his room. They yank him out of there, right? And they go, Gillies, get his decks. And I'm like, what? They just take his effing decks. And I've got all the security guys there. So we grab his Pioneer decks and everything. Walking past all the police on the way back to our block. And they're all laughing and smiling because they weren't paying, right? And this guy owes the money. So they're going to let the prisoners do the work, right? So we're going past with all his decks, his TV, all his phones, everything, back into our block, up into the room, and they're like, Gillies, get on the decks. So I start DJing. They've got this guy in a circle, right? So they all sit round in a circle. There are no chairs in the prison because of the culture. Everybody's cross-legged, wearing sarongs, blah, blah, blah. They've got all his phones out in the middle, everything like this. They're pistol whipping him. They take all his phones and they give him one phone and they say, right, you've got until this afternoon's count to find the money. I think it was 100 million rupiah, which is about 10 grand US dollars, right? Then the bong comes out, starts going around the circle. They're giving him some as well, but meanwhile they're trying to mentally trip him out. It's like a game of duration and mental toughness to get through this moment, right? Gillies, DJ. The bong's getting passed around. The pistols are being pointed at his head. And I'm just like, how the hell did I end up here? Yeah.
Right, we'll get back to that. Wow, I'm breathtaking. Lost for words. Oh my goodness, you really took us very descriptively into the bowels of the jail there.
Yes.
Really enjoyed it. So now what we're going to do, we'll go back. People are wondering how the hell is a well-spoken educated man such as yourself end up in this hellhole? What happened, Giles?
Right.
Does this go? Were you a criminal as a kid, or was it this come much later?
Absolutely not. I had a very, 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 very fortunate upbringing. I was actually, to give you some backstory, I was born in Dubai during the 70s. So my father worked for a big oil company. And so I was born in Dubai, and then after that we moved to Malawi, and then back to England. And then when I was about 7 years old, my father moved back to Dubai for work. So I went to boarding school, prep school, and then after prep school, I went to Tunbridge School, which is one of the top 10 schools in the country, and I was very, very privileged and very, very lucky to have gone there. After that, I went to university, and I was at university in Oxford, not Oxford University, but Oxford Brookes, and I actually started DJing when I was 14 years old. Me and my friends, yeah, we got into DJing at about that age, just when the rave scene was really kicking off, which I think you and your cuddle puddles and all the rest of it can appreciate. And that was back when, Kiss FM was a pirate radio station, the days of the Rat Pack and all of that sort of thing. And so when I got to university, I actually bought some decks and started properly DJing myself. And also between me and my friends, we ended up running a pub and a wine bar, which was a converted house, and we were putting on about 3 student nights a week in the nightclubs up there. And so this was just as like the superstar DJ thing was coming on. So I was able to make very good money as a student. I think at one point I was getting paid £250 an hour to DJ, right? And so, there were times I was earning £3,000 a week as a student, and obviously lectures, etc., weren't really something that was at the forefront of my mind. And in actual fact, there was a girl on my course whose boyfriend was a trader in the city, foreign exchange, futures and options. And I met him, and straight away he said, "You should come and work for me." And I said, "Look, I can't. I'm at university. My mum and dad will kill me, blah, blah, blah." But then it kind of got to the point where I didn't want to pursue university because I just wasn't into it. And I really think at that point you have to be very dedicated to your course and getting things done, and that simply wasn't the case with me. And so I called this guy up, and I think that was on a Monday, and he had me down to London for an interview on a Wednesday, and they said that they'd let me know the following week. But on the Friday, I was in the car with my mate after putting up loads of flyers around town for one of the nights that we were doing, and he called and he said, "You've got the job, you start Monday." And so I started work down in London the following Monday, and that was the start of my career as a foreign exchange broker and foreign exchange trader, which I absolutely loved. And I knew the moment I started doing that I'd made the right choice, because I was into that a lot more than I was ever my degree. And so I was very successful at that, at sales, bringing on accounts, etc., at a very young age. I was only 19, and I think by the time I was 21, I'd been made a senior dealer at this particular company, and there were only 6 of them in this company, and I'd made it to that level, and the rest of the guys were all over 30. So I was loving life at that point. I'd got the Savile Row suits, going around town. The older guys loved taking me around town as the young, whippersnapper, blah, blah, blah. But at that point, I was introduced to cocaine.
Yeah, the white.
Sorry, the white. I was introduced to the white. And at first, it was just recreational use at the weekends or on a Friday night, or in the city, Thirsty Thursday, yeah. And then I developed a bit of an appetite for it, shall we say. And so as a consequence of that, I lost my job at that particular place. And then I had a couple of other jobs around some other firms, but I was never truly happy with them because I felt that I wasn't being given the right rewards for the amount of business that I was doing. So, you know, one of these companies was I was doing 80% of the business in the company, and they had 40 people there, etc. And you know, I was top trader for 3.5 years consecutively. However, you know, at this point, I had matured from a boy to a man, and so I went my separate ways, and I decided to set up my own company. So at this point, my use had got
White.
Keep
going.
My use of white had got very, very strong, and I can remember one morning just waking up. Well, I think I was still awake after about 3 or 4 days of completely hammering it, and I was just sitting there in my underwear, and I was flicking through my phone, and every single number in my recents, every single one was a drug dealer. And I said to myself, you know, if you don't call one of those people today, what is it that you're exactly going to do? And I couldn't quite answer that question, you know, and that really sort of disturbed me. And I wanted to get my career back on track and stop messing around with that type of lifestyle. So I actually had a client that was in Singapore, and you know, the reputation of Singapore is that there are no drugs there. It's a very clean place. They say it's a fine city in terms of you get fined for chewing gum or not flushing. So I thought, right, that would be a perfect place for me to go in terms of if it's not around, then I'm not going to have a problem not doing it. And so I called my client up and I said, look, I want to move to Singapore, and he very kindly said, okay, yeah, you can come and you can come and stay with me. And he ran a business there a computer peripheral distribution business, and he gave me a desk in his office. So literally within 3 days, I was on a plane out to Singapore.
Wow.
And so I went from doing copious, in excess of Ozzy Osbourne amounts of white to nothing. And I didn't actually have a problem with that.
Good.
So I was, you know, I arrived in Singapore. I didn't know anybody there. At that time, there was a very prolific trade in CPUs and mobile phones in the UK that a lot of the FX businesses were doing, and there were 3 or 4 main players that you would always hear about that were the main movers in this market that you could never, ever, ever get hold of. So I arrived in Singapore on a Thursday, and on the Sunday, he had a barbecue at his house, and all of these guys were there with their kids, their wives, everything. So I then started the following Monday, trading between 2 and 5 million quid a day in turnover with these guys. They all signed up accounts with me, and I was laughing because all the guys in London trying to find these people and never could. And I just suddenly met them all at this barbecue and started doing business for them. So, and then that's when I met my wife as well. We very quickly fell in love, and my business was doing very, very well. I still had my company back in London that I had a key worker working in. He was doing all the back office, and I was out in Singapore doing all the trading and the client-facing stuff, etc.
And you met your wife at the barbecue, did you say?
Not at the barbecue. I actually met my wife leaving a nightclub, and she was just getting in her car, and I saw her across the street, and I can swear to God there was a light shining down on this woman. And so I walked across the road and I said, "Excuse me, but you've dazzled me." And she looked at me and she said, "F*** off." And I said, "No, I'm being serious." And so I wanted her to give me her number, and she refused to do it. So I said, "Okay, well, look, I'll give you mine, and then if you want to call me, you can." And I couldn't remember my phone number because I'd just got there, right? So I can't remember what it was, but she thought I was trying to trick her into me giving her phone to me so that I could get her number. Anyway, long story short, it was the following Monday, and I was trading at night, and I got a text message that just said, "Hi," and I knew it was her. And I called it back, and we spoke for about 5 hours straight.
What?
Yeah. And 6 months later, I asked her to marry me.
Oh.
Yeah. So, an incredible woman. Anyway, so I was doing all this daily business and making quite a lot of money. I think in 18 months turned over just shy of $2 billion in trade. So when I was at this, sitting in this guy's office with a desk in the office, he had started using a Caribbean bank to do some of his banking through. And so he said, "Look, this guy wants to talk to you from the bank." So I was like, "Right, okay." So this guy called me and basically said, he was a representative for the bank, but their bank doesn't do foreign exchange. Would I mind doing foreign exchange for all of his customers and the bank's customers? At which point, of course, I said, yes, I would. And so our turnover and our flows were through the roof. And I'd actually got a very, very good payment system from Barclays Bank where we could, it used to be called Barclays Paymaster, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But we could recognise funds at like 8 o'clock in the morning and also send funds out up until, I think, 6 o'clock at night. I might be wrong on that. But we could also produce documentation that normally clients that are importing and exporting and need foreign exchange can't get hold of because of the bank's regime and process, etc. We were able to do it like this. So suddenly these guys had the ability to flip their money 3 or 4 times a day rather than once every 2 days. And so that was our advantage. And so we were doing, huge volumes and also everything running very, very smoothly. I was keeping all of my profit in this Caribbean bank. And then 3 weeks before I got married, it was a Friday, and we'd booked up a load of deals and sent money out of the account to the market makers in London. And the market makers all Friday afternoon were screaming, "Where's the money? Where's the money?" as they do. And it wasn't there. And I said, "Look, it's been processed." Sent them the confirmations of that. Monday, the fit really did hit the shan. And they're like, "The money's not here. Where is it? We've got to close out all your positions." And then on Tuesday, the money was back in the Caribbean account, but in red. There'd been an international joint effort by the Dutch and UK authorities, and they'd closed down the whole bank
What?
with a blanket intervention order.
Hey, do you know what that sound means? Ooh, that's something I've been hearing a lot lately. I can't help but love that. That's what I hear when I make another sale on Shopify, the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. Shopify is the commerce platform revolutionizing millions of businesses worldwide. The Pokemon business I've recently started with someone is absolutely thriving thanks to Shopify. Shopify accepts all kinds of payments, and sometimes it's complex when you get on a platform, but their dashboard makes it completely simple. Covering all your sales channels from a shopfront-ready POS system to its all-in-one e-commerce platform, Shopify even gets you selling across social media marketplaces like Facebook, Insta, TikTok, and YouTube. Full of the industry-leading tools ready to ignite your growth, Shopify gives you complete control over your business and your brand without learning new skills in design or coding. And thanks to award-winning help and with an extensive business course library, Shopify is ready to support your success every step of the way. So when it comes to dealing with people all over the world, Shopify is absolutely enabling us to smash it with our Pokemon business. Before Shopify, our Pokemon card business was in the dark ages. It's time to get serious about selling and get Shopify today. This is Possibility, powered by Shopify. Sign up for a £1 per month trial period at shopify.co.uk/Sean, SHAUN, all lowercase. Go to shopify.co.uk/Sean, SHAUN to take your business to the next level today. Shopify.co.uk/Sean. Link in description box below this video on YouTube. Thanks for watching. Back to the podcast.
And it had been taken over by the central bank there, because pretty much every account holder in the bank was committing VAT fraud, carousel fraud, of which we had been doing the foreign exchange for, unbeknownst to us at the time. So 3 weeks before I'm due to get married to this beautiful lady, the bottom fell out of my world. And we actually, the bank then produced an audit report that you had to fulfill in order to retrieve your funds, that if you've been committing VAT carousel fraud, would be impossible for you to produce this audit. We were able to do it because obviously we're foreign exchange brokers. We don't even have a VAT number, nothing to do with that. And we're fully compliant, along with all our AML and all the rest of it, and got it off down to the bank within 2 weeks. And they refused to pay us out. So at this point, I had got 4.4 million quid stuck in there.
No, you got robbed.
Yeah. And got a wedding to get through, etc., etc. And, so long story short on all of that, I had to engage a lawyer. Couldn't pay for a lawyer because I didn't have any money. So I had to negotiate a deal with him of no win, no fee. And his fee was 30% if he won it. Fast forward 12 years and we won. So, we got fully audited by 2 governments, name dragged through the mud, blah, 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 blah. Obviously, had to survive life with, your income stream being removed, etc. Anyway, we did end up winning that, but it took 12 years to do.
And they released the 4 million?
No, they kept back 25%, which is still in there. But, that's another story with regards to that. I can come to later. And then the lawyer took $2.2 million in fees, and I just got a small balance out, basically.
So you've gone from dropping out of uni, becoming an expert currency trader, meet the love of your life.
Yep.
In the run-up to that, though, there's a financial meltdown at the bank.
Yep.
What happens next?
What happens next is I basically decided to show my missus that I respected her and her industry. So she was actually, an entrepreneur in her own right, when I first met her, she was a lecturer at LaSalle University over there, which is the most respected university in Singapore, pretty much, I believe. She had a garage, a little bit like Fast and Furious. She reminded me of the Asian chick from Fast and Furious, right? And she had a clothes shop as well. So I said to her, look, I'm gonna work for you for 1 year in your shop to show you that I appreciate what you do for a living, and so that you can never say to me that I don't, and all the rest of it. So I spent, a year working with her, working in a woman's clothes shop in a mall in Singapore, which was challenging in itself as a Westerner, etc. But all that time, I was kind of pitching, high net worth individuals to invest and speculate on the FX, but through my trade book, and I would get commissions. So that's how I kind of, survived the next, few years. Then she got pregnant with our first daughter. God bless her.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. And so at this point, I had to, do some of the buying trips on my own when she was heavily pregnant. I'm sitting there with all these local ladies, just ploughing through all these clothes, saying, we'll have 4 pieces, blah, 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 blah. But I also, at that point, managed to get a couple of investors for my business. And then, a few years later, we actually won the court case in the Caribbean, and I got paid out. So with that payout, I invested that in my business, and had nice offices down in town, and I took on a couple of guys to work with me, and at that point I started getting a lot of interest from some faces around town down there, mainly a director of an IFA over there, and an ex-hedge fund manager, and some other people. And so that was kind of a brilliant way of propelling the business forward and getting more recognition. And also by having an IFA as a shareholder, it was like having a sales floor of 40 people that you don't have to pay for, because they were on a commission deal for all the business that they referred in. And suddenly the business just absolutely took off and started doing very, very well.
Good.
Then I felt like it was getting saturated in terms of my family and I. We couldn't go out anywhere without bumping into someone that worked for me or clients, right? And even just like going to out for a meal, so someone bops their head up, they want to come along and talk about them, etc. And I've been living in Singapore for I think about 15 years at this point, and because the business had grown so much, obviously there was a lot of staff entertainment to do, and also client entertainment. And so my alcohol intake at this point was extremely high. Plus, I've got minor scoliosis, but causes a lot of pain. So I was taking tramadol and all the rest of it. And I'd said to my wife, look, I want to move to Bali. I've had it here, I've had enough of Singapore. Let's move to Bali. And she wasn't so keen on the idea. And then coincidentally, a guy that was working for me in my office in Singapore said, right, I've got someone in Bali that wants to be an IB, an introductory broker. So I said, okay, let's go and have a look. So we went over to Bali on this planned trip to meet this guy, and he was going to introduce a lot of clients there, because I didn't want to go anywhere near the place unless I could make the business wipe its own face, right? And at this point, I'd got every Tom, Dick and Harry knocking on my door for a job, because it was just at the time that open outcry markets were being replaced by computerized markets. And so a lot of people are losing their jobs, and these are guys that have been in the industry 15, 20 years, institutionalized by the industry, and we're looking around for work, etc. So I'd got a long list of people knocking on my door and people promising this and that, but actually not really producing the goods. So I wanted to go over to Bali. I wanted to meet these clients that he had to secure the business before going there. So we went over for the weekend. Now, I actually called the guy there and I said, look, I'm going to be honest with you, mate, but I smoke, right? I smoke green. Do you know anybody that can sort us out when we're there? So he said, yeah, okay. And when we got there, I was introduced to this guy who also procured white as well. Now, when my guy from Singapore and my guy from Bali left the room to go outside and have a cigarette, he said to me, right, oh, you're Giles, are you? You're the guy that does all the banking and all the FX and all this sort of thing. And I said, yeah, no, that's right. And he said, I've got two mates of mine that have a business that need you. Can you come and meet them? So it got to Sunday, and I'd been paraded around this list of jokes by this contact in Bali of people that are never going to trade, mainly bars that he used to drink in, right? And I refused to leave the island until I'd secured some business. So we delayed our flights, and I went and met these two lads in Potato Head over there, and they explained that they were running they were just moving to Bali, and that they were running an investment business, selling shares, etc. And they needed, FX accounts, etc. So, right, great, okay, we stood there, we did the deal. I went back to Singapore, and they started doing business, but they moved back to Thailand from Bali. And I was like, right, what sort of happened here? And they said, oh, things weren't working out in Bali, so they'd moved to Thailand, where they were running the business there. So I went over to Thailand on the first couple of deals that they'd done, and because they wanted paying in cash, right? And I actually had a bureau de change license, so it wasn't beyond the realm to do that. Plus, I used to run a very strict policy on anti-money laundering and KYC. Had I not done that, we wouldn't have won the case in the Caribbean. So when I met them a couple of times, and then back in Singapore, Brexit. And long story short, the arse came out of our book.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people were caught short on that. I traded with the market. That's where I had all my wealth as well. But, the book went overnight, along with, my money and the clients, etc. And so I thought, right, this is the time to move to Bali, because being in Singapore, I didn't feel like I could manage that situation properly because of the fallout from it. So I got on a plane to Bali and secured a villa, and then the wife and my kids came following that. And it was at this point that apparently some of the clients in Singapore weren't who they said they were, and I was receiving death threats, basically from a couple of Russian characters who had put their money through a major international sports star, who had decided to use their money to speculate on the FX markets. And when Brexit happened and he lost, he didn't obviously want to take responsibility for that. That's my fault, apparently, right? So it's all well and good when people are getting paid out, But then when the market turns against them, you're the bad man, you know. But unfortunately, I don't control the foreign exchange markets, you know.
And it moved violently around Brexit. I remember
Oh,
watching
I've not seen anything like that in 23 years, mate.
Yeah.
I've never seen that in my life. And, you know, margin calls were tripled. I've never seen that in my life. And so, you know, impossible. So all the positions got closed out, right? And that was that. You know, I had my own money in there as well, you know, and also, you know, I've been building the company for 15 years at this point. I put a lot of money into development of software, CRM software, multi-logistical cash tracking, you know, cradle to grave on the business, basically all software, hand built and tailored, etc. And I put all my time and energy into it. So it was massive heartbreak to me, but also, you know, the rules of the market are the rules of the market, right? And I found it a very difficult thing to get over because I traded with the market. Prior to Brexit, all of my clients over there were heads of banks, market makers for big market makers over in Asia. And I listened to them and I traded with the market. And it went wrong, you know. So I've been planning to go to Bali anyway. I'd got enough clients there or from there to make it wipe its own face. And it was better to be there to deal with the situation rather than all these people in Singapore not wanting to accept reality and jumping up and down and throwing their toys out of the pram. But anyway, when I got to Bali, suddenly these Russians raised their ugly head. And my contact with the white and the green said, listen, you know, we should get you some bodyguards. So at this point, I then engaged the Lascar to be my bodyguards, who are one of the, you know, biggest gangs on the island. And so my train of thought was, you know, does it take a bigger bear to kill a bear? And so at this point, I engaged, you know, the Lascar to bodyguard myself and my family. And also at that point, because of the pressure and the unease, my intake of substances increased tenfold.
So you've relocated to Indonesia and Russian gangsters are on your tail.
Yeah. So nothing in Indonesia or Bali is ever a straight arrow. So I had gone ahead to Bali ahead of my wife and kids to find a villa. Now, you have to pay for a villa a year in advance, etc. there, which I did. But the villa that I had secured was actually owned by a very famous Italian footballer and his Indonesian missus, and they were very sort of famous, you know, in the local. They're very famous in the expat community there, and there was a delay on me moving into the villa that I'd secured with them because they had tenants in there that were actually Russian, and so I was staying in one of her other villas, which was adjacent to the property, and I got extremely ill. I've never been so ill in my life, and I had a severe case of facial herpes. I had big plates all over my face. I couldn't talk.
Like shingles?
Yeah, like shingles. And she had to take me to the hospital. And she felt very, very guilty about this. So she found another villa slightly further out. I was living in the area of Umalas, Barawa and Canggu in Bali. And there's a next village on, if you like, from Canggu is an area called Perenninan. And so she arranged for me and my family to be able to stay in this other villa until we could move into the villa that we'd rented. And so it was when we'd just moved in there, and I had just moved in there, and I had to do a visa run. So I flew to Malaysia, and then when I flew back was when I was going to meet all these bodyguards that my other mate had arranged for me. So on the flight back, I was getting extremely nervous about this whole situation, and my veins on my neck were obviously popping. So, and all I'd been sent was a picture of one of them pulling their shirt aside with the Lasker logo on it. And I was just told, just look for this logo and these guys will pick you up and take care of you. So as I came through Bali airport, I got a taste of things when I was pulled aside with a couple of other travellers, and I got body searched in the back room and checked for drugs. And I can remember being so scared at that point, you know, being taken into a back room and you're being prodded and you have to strip down and they're checking whether you're carrying any narcotics or anything like that. And, you know, I produced my business card and all of this sort of thing. And anyway, when I came through at the airport, there were 5 or 6 of these gorillas standing there, and they scooped me up and they put me into one of their vehicles. They had 3 or 4 guys on motorbikes outside.
What?
They were stopping the police and just driving straight through. And I'm thinking, oh my Lord, what's going on here? And this villa was actually quite out in the sticks a little bit, if you like. And then when we got to the villa, these guys, they've all got their camouflage jackets. So like the standard like dress code for these guys is a camouflage jacket, black shirt, and then camouflage trousers. Yeah, that's how you know that. And their tattoos, right? So we get to the villa, they're all out, they're all searching all the villa, they're, you know, opening all the doors, blah blah blah. They clear it, and then they bed down in the sort of walled off garden and the living areas outside, and they all start settling down for the night. And there was an older guy there who was actually the second in charge of the Lasker, who'd come along personally, and he went like this, he's got a pistol on him, and he proceeded to tell me through a translator that he hated Russians, and that he was there to do them himself if they came along. And so I was just thinking at this point, oh my Lord, this is actually really quite heavy, yeah. And so, you know, went to bed, blah, blah, blah.
Had you agreed terms with these people, like how much they were going to get paid and stuff?
So I agreed terms with them on the cost of everything. And then the next morning, you know, a lot of them left, and they left behind 2 guys that were on rotation 24 hours a day. And I had a driver as well. And so if I went out anywhere, I had these guys with me, and they were at the villa as well, blah, blah, blah. And then my wife and kids came over from Singapore, and, you know, we all moved into the villa. We tried to keep it as normal as possible. But, you know, it was difficult to, it was difficult to get on with things such as putting the kids in school and stuff.
Imagine.
Whilst there was this imminent threat, if you like. Then I started receiving text messages saying, we know exactly where you are because we own a credit card company, and we can run a fraud check down the system and find your IP address and get your exact location, blah, blah, blah. And
was that legit, or were they just blowing?
I think it was legit, yeah. They weren't just blowing, it was very legit. and so then had to step things up a little bit. And the head of the gang used to come every Friday just to check on the boys, and I would sit outside the front with them and cook them a meal, and drink beers with them and make sure they're all right, as well as obviously handing over the money, right? And
Do you mind asking, well, how much does it cost for this?
I used to have to pay 14 million a month, 14 million.
Which is what in UK?
I think it's about 700 quid.
700 quid a month?
Yeah.
That's decent, isn't it?
Which is all right, yeah, which is okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think my maths on that is right, yeah. Yeah. And so at this point, I actually got another payout from the Caribbean Bank, and managed to use that money to pay these guys, even though they were in the wrong, but just please leave me and my family alone. So at that point, we were, the girls then started going to school there.
How much had they lost?
How much had they lost? It was about 150,000 quid.
And how much did you pay them?
About 100 grand.
And did they leave it at that?
They did, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, yeah. And so, so the girls started at school there, and we're trying to just normalise things a little bit. At this point, they'd been out of school for about 6 months, and, that early stage of their development, it was very, very important that we, got them into school and they could start making new friends, etc. We then as well moved into the villa that we'd secured, and at this point I started getting referrals from these guys in Thailand of other people like them that needed banking and foreign exchange services. Now, because I'd had my own company since 2004, I'd got a company in London, South Africa, Hong Kong, Singapore, and a referral network in Australia and Thailand. And so I had, online dealing platform that they could log into, they could pull off statements, etc., etc. Very professional. They could see all their trading history on it. And these guys couldn't believe their luck, really, to begin with. And suddenly I had 4 or 5 of these people in Thailand, and they were all wanting cash. They wanted paying in cash. Now, in that part of the world, it is a cash-based market, and sending investments in and out of third world countries can be difficult. So, they fitted all of the anti-money laundering regulations, and also they ticked all the boxes for the KYC. My MLRO, my money laundering reporting officer, seemed satisfied with all the paperwork. And then at this point, probably doing about up to £250,000 a week for them. And then I got a phone call one day from a referral from one of these people from an outfit in Cambodia. And they were talking about doing large amounts of money, right? And so I kind of fronted the guy out and I was like, look, that's what everybody says. But if you are who you say you are, the opening fees for the account is £5,000. I've got a guy in Bangkok. If you can get someone down there in the next couple of hours and pay, I'll give you the account. And they did. So I knew they were serious. And the first transaction they did was for $1 million, which I personally took to Bangkok to go and meet them and, just agree terms ongoing, etc. And so very quickly, I was, doing large amounts of money for, 4 or 5 competing firms over there, unbeknownst to me at the time. But, these are characters that are, a little bit, off centre, shall we say. And there'd certainly been some incidents in Pattaya in Thailand where someone had been shot in the back of the head, etc. And so it was a very stressful time as well, because sometimes people aren't able to understand the mechanics of the banking system and how long things take, etc. So I did have to use a lot of my skill set in order to manage them and to keep things on an even keel. And I had to introduce things like minimum amounts on the week that before they could get paid out. And so I used to DJ at this point as well, down on Barawa Beach for the Sunset Mix. I'd found a little coconut shack that was belting out dodgy reggae through a dodgy speaker every day. And I said to the guy, look, if you let me come and DJ here, then, your business will grow. I don't want paying, right? But I just want to DJ and everything. And, I got it up to the point where I was probably playing there about 3 or 4 times a week. And on a Thursday through till Saturday, it'd be 200 or 300 people out on the bean bags watching the sunset. And I was mixing. I was obviously doing a lot of white and smoking a lot of green and standing there taking calls. I made 300 grand whilst I was DJing, broking deals in one afternoon. And it's, at that point, you kind of lose sense of reality, And I was taken away by the whole atmosphere of the place,
It's like
the
Cafe
style of
Mambo or
living.
something.
Yeah, I was riding a beautiful chopper motorbike. I got my 2 beagles there. The family were coming down at the end of the day after school, playing on the beach. I was DJing. We'd eat at the coconut shack, and also making a hell of a lot of money. And so I went down there one afternoon, and there was this huge lump sitting there, covered in tattoos and shaved head and all the rest of it. And at first I thought, oh my God, the Russians have found me, right? And so after a little while, I built up some courage and I walked over there and I said, I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to play a few tunes. And the guy turned around and said, oh, hey, no problem, he was Scottish. I'm sorry, I apologise for the Scottish accent. So I was like, right, thank God he's not Russian. We developed, quite a strong bond. And he was on holiday over there, and he had a fondness for mushrooms. But he used to be an oil rig worker, and he was looking for work. And I had tried to help him find some work because I used to be a Freemason in Singapore, and there were a few guys that were in the oil industry there, and I contacted them to see if they could help get him a job. But it was at that time where that industry had taken a massive nosedive and there wasn't anything going, and I needed a bit of security around me, and also someone that would, help run the business. And so, he came back to my villa, he met my family, and we came to, an arrangement with regards to giving him a job and what his role would be and all the rest of it. So after I did the initial piece of work into Bangkok and met all these people, it was then for him to go and do all of that side of things, as well as, be around me as a deterrent, blah, 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 and help run the business and help run the family as well. And, we got very, very close, and, we were making a lot of money, and I was paying him a very, very healthy salary. Then sort of at that point, I was using a large amount. I had three guys, three different dealers there that were dropping off at different times in the day on whatever their clocks were.
Were you hiding this from your wife?
No, I wasn't. I was always very, very open with her with regards to that. But obviously hiding it from the children and everyone around me. And because of the reputational risk, for example, in Singapore, I'd got very good at doing that sort of thing. And I used to take a lot of time to make sure that my private life was my private life. And then in Bali, I made sure no one knew where I lived, apart from 3 or 4 people. And at this point, I'd also brought over a friend of mine from Malaysia who was working for me. He used to run a big whiskey and wine business in Singapore, but had been living in Malaysia and had sort of fallen on hard times. And so I let him come and live in my house, and he was working for me. But at this point, because I was earning a lot of money, the jealousy started kicking in. And there were people there that were very curious about how I was doing this and what I was doing, and they tried to step inside me, including the guy that came and lived in my house.
The Scottish guy?
No.
The Malaysian guy?
Yeah. Which was heartbreaking, basically. But I watched him do it, and I knew he was up to it because I wanted him to just fall over. Because, look, being a broker and trader for 23 years, you build up a network that you're not going to get unless you're in that game. So although they might be able to do certain components or parts of the process, they wouldn't be able to do the complete job, or they would fuck it up if there was a problem straight away, excuse the language. And so I kind of allowed that to happen so that he could fall over himself, and it would just be easier just to kind of like move him on like that. But also at this point, I let the Scottish guy know, look, you need to get your own clients. I've allowed you to come in and deal with things at this level as basically to give you a sharp learning curve so that you understand the business. You've dealt with my clients. These are my clients, though. And so, I've been giving you commission on this, but now that stops and you have to get your own clients, right? To which he agreed, but he begged me, could he still do the other side of the business? Because that's the sexy side, and that's what, but it takes a long time to get there. And, he was doing white with me. I was very generous with the white, and as a result I had a lot of groupies or whatever, which I could see what was going on, but it was also kind of a necessary evil to allow things to happen and do the business and keep people from going funny on you, etc. So yeah, at this point I was getting delivered 3 times a day about 3 grams of white. And it was also at this point that one of them showed me how to wash up. Yeah. So for those of you that don't know what washing up is, it is turning the product into 100% purity. And that is extremely addictive in itself. And the high isn't that long. And so therefore your appetite and your consumption increases quite heavily. So, the missus was, upset with me. Even my friends and even the dealers were saying, look, mate, you've got to tone it down a bit, right? It's not like I was running around town being obvious and, off my nut, because I kept it in the villa. But just the absolute consumption rates were startling to them, even as dealers, right? And because I developed, friendships with these people as well. And, we'd have family meals with one another and all the rest of it. And, my missus would be talking to them saying, look, you've got to, and they'd try their best, but it wasn't enough to stop me, And so at this point, one of these companies had done the wrong thing by their clients, right, and had disappeared on them. And so one of the account holders in my payment network, this guy, this absolute nut job, I will say, had gone to him and had threatened him and all this sort of thing. So this guy gave my name up. So this guy took it upon himself to say that it was me that had done it. I'd never even spoken to this person in my life, ever.
Like the way the guy passed the Russians onto you, same scenario.
Kind of different in terms of, look, let's, just take a normal company and we're receiving third-party payments for them, right? Okay, it's all normal, yeah? But let's put it like this. Let's just say you manufacture shirts, right? You're a shirt company. Your customers pay into your account with my company to pay for the goods, etc. We do the foreign exchange conversions and pay out, blah, blah, blah. If the shirt that you make isn't good quality and is the wrong size, is that my fault? No, right? Nor would I ever talk to you as the guy that has bought the shirt. Nor do I sell you the shirt, right? So, but this guy had taken it upon himself to blame me for it, and that I was the mastermind behind the whole operation, and then proceeded to hack and contact all members of my family with emails that when they opened them at their work, it then mass emailed every single person in their contacts, business and personal, that I was a fraudster, that I'd done this and that, with just purely disgusting and vile stories and jokes attached to it, and everything, causing huge embarrassment for my family and obviously for me. And then he was contacting my wife, sending pictures of hypodermic needles. He'd paid people to come to Bali that were hanging outside my kids' school. No. He took out adverts in the Bali press that I was a fraudster and all this sort of thing. He even rang the company, right, and asked for me by my name, and he sent me the recording of this, and they're going, Giles who? Giles who? They don't even know who I am, right? And it proceeded to make life incredibly difficult. There were pictures of guys hanging around outside the villa with knives and all this sort of stuff. So
what about your mates in the...
Well, so at this point, my mate says, I think you need to get some really heavy guys. So I actually at this same point moved to another villa. Not because of that, but I was moving there anyway, because I was upgrading, upping a level in life at this point. It was a beautiful, beautiful villa up the road, and I moved, one of my DJ friends into my villa, trying to help him, because he was living in a very, very small sort of arrangement. I wanted to help him, and he found this other villa for me. So we moved into this beautiful villa, which was actually a lot more secure. It had a long driveway, it had a security box on the front, and then its own parking area, and then, gated wall for the garden, etc. So at this point, obviously, things were getting out of control with regards to the safety of my family. So I had to hire what are called close quarter bodyguards. And these are guys that stand 4 inches away from you, surrounding you completely, all dressed in black. These guys were bodyguards for the president when he comes to Bali. And they're from a particular island in Indonesia that they use to bring in assassins when a little bit of underhanded work is required, right? And so, even going out for a packet of sweets for the girls, there's all these outriders and guys in the car, sunglasses and boom, 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 getting waved through by the police, all this sort of stuff.
Does this cost more than the $700 a month?
Yeah, this was $6,000 a month. So it was a massive upgrade. Yeah. So, you know, but at this point, you know, I was very, very worried because simultaneously, just after we moved into the larger villa, the Scottish guy who was due to do a cash drop for one of the customers one day ran away with the money.
Oh, how much?
It was about 80 grand.
Oh, no.
And he went and paid for a villa for himself for a year and all the rest of it, and then came back and said, oh, it's because he hadn't been paid commission for 3 months. And this is, or 4 months or whatever. And this is following the fact that he'd been taken off commission and that he needed to go and get his own clients. But at this point, he had started using shabu. And so his mind had been melted and his view of reality had been altered, and he'd taken it upon himself to justify it like that. So that left me in very hot water with these people that were expecting the payout, which obviously I couldn't fulfill. And it was at this point that I decided it was best that my wife and kids go back to Singapore, because I was getting inundated with threats and all sorts of nastiness. So then one morning I'm in bed in my villa. There's a knock on the door, and my security guy's outside saying, Giles, open up, but look, listen, you know, there's some people here, but you know, don't worry, right? So I opened the door, and there were two of the biggest conkers you've ever seen in your life, mate, right? And they proceeded to put me in a car and drive me down to the airport, where I had a particular individual on the phone telling me that they were going to put me, that the police weren't going to help me, immigration weren't going to help me, and that they were going to put me in the boot of a car on a boat to Thailand, and then put me in a prison in Thailand until I paid.
So your bodyguards just let these guys in?
Yes.
Why?
I don't know.
Okay.
So I don't know whether they had an arrangement with them, because over there it's all about money.
One mafia knows the other mafia.
One mafia knows the other mafia. So down at the airport, I managed to come to terms with this guy, because at the end of the day, it wasn't down to me that this had happened. It was my responsibility because the guy worked for me, but it wasn't something that I had done purposely or something that I had engineered or anything like that. And so we had to reach payment terms, shall we say, that were extremely difficult to do. And so as a consequence, I then started selling all of my possessions in order to try and fulfill the obligation.
How much did they want?
They wanted the full amount.
But like you said, payment terms, what were the terms?
About 10 grand a week.
10 grand a week?
Yeah.
UK money?
Yeah. And so obviously that was a very difficult position to be in. And I suddenly had found myself in this world that I'd never encountered before. You know, I'm not a gangster. I'm not, you know, from the road, or I'm not, you know, from a troubled background or anything like that. And it was something that I suddenly found myself in a world of trouble with. It was something that it was my responsibility. I take, you know, responsibility for that. And it's something that I own, right? It's nobody else that made these decisions that led to me being there. So I managed to fulfill, you know, my obligations to that a fair amount. But also after these guys had, you know, let these absolute bruises in, I then started questioning the security arrangements, because this guy, this other client that had been giving death threats and all the rest of it, started getting a lot more prolific and very heavy with it as well. So just down the road from my villa was an absolutely excellent nightclub. Brilliant. It was run by some Italians. It was called Jungle Nightclub, and I went there one night and I bumped into a character in there who was just called P, yeah, also Scottish, but he was known for dealing with security issues on the island and had links with this and that and all the rest of it. And my DJ friend, who I'd let come and live in my other villa, had said to me, stay away from him, mate, because he's quite dark, yeah. And anyway, so I sat down with him and had a conversation about whether he could help me or not, right? And so it turns out he knows my security guys, right? And so we've gone back to my villa and he's walked in there and he's kind of ordering them around and everything, right? And being quite arrogant and all the rest of it. But at this point, Sean, I have to say, right, the stress, the amount of drugs that I was doing, I was just like, I don't know what's going on and I don't know how to handle this.
I'm getting more stressed out just listening to it. It's getting more and more nuts. Yeah. Everything you say is crazy.
It's absolutely crazy. And so we've gone back to my villa and we've sat there and done a load of white, and then he's actually, you know, a bit of an alcoholic. This guy's gone out and got vodka and was sitting there drinking vodka and blah, blah, blah. And I said, look, you know, can you please help me with this situation? So he's like, right, I think I know someone that can help. You know, they also run businesses similar to these guys, but in Jakarta, right? So I'm like, right, okay. And so the following Friday, right, we're at the villa and I'm getting to meet this guy who's going to come and help. I've been on the phone with him and explained, look, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened, yeah? And they're also looking for banking services. So I'm like, look, can we do a deal where, look, I'm doing your banking and then I can pay these guys out, they can go away, but also this rogue person in Australia that's threatening, needs dealing with, to leave me alone, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, right, look, you know, we've got the police in our pocket, we've got the military in our pocket, we've got the so-and-so in our pocket, we can deal with it, we can help you. So I'm like, right, okay. And so we're at the villa on Friday and boom, the skeezer comes through the door. We'll call him V, yeah, American, but claiming to be Canadian, which I don't believe for a second, because he spoke with a thick Brooklyn accent. Steroided out to the max, yeah. Got a pistol, right? Okay, strapped up, and he's hello, Giles. Yeah, we can help you. Blah blah blah. Can you do all our banking as well? Yes, no, of course I can, etc. Right? And then he's like, and what about this guy that's, you know, death threatening you and all this sort of stuff? So I explained that to him, and he goes, right, we're going to go and meet this guy. We'll call him I, yeah, who's in a nightclub, and you know, he can be your, you know, personal bodyguard for the moment. So at this point, you've obviously got a drama with the other security lot that you're going to be ruffling their feathers, right? I'm like, well, I don't know what to do. And so we go off to this particular nightclub, and I meet this guy, yeah, right, and he looks like a blown up version of Action Man. You never remember Action Man? Yeah, exactly like that, but with bleached hair. He's Aussie guy, absolute unit, right? And he's got the Lascar tattoos on his hands. He's a hitman for the Lascar. Christ. So all of a sudden, yeah.
Just when you think it can't get any crazier.
Just when you think it can't get any worse, yeah. And so I said, he's like, oh, right, okay, Giles, come and sit down. He goes, yeah, don't worry about him, mate. I'll cut him the fucking ribbons, is his expression. I'm like, right, okay. And so we've given over the passport details of this geezer, yeah? Because I've ID'd all clients, obviously, for my business. So I've got their passport, utility bill, driving licence, bank statements, his address, everything. So we've given him that so that if he comes through immigration, he's going to get tugged at immigration, right? So, and at this point, there's phone calls going on, the threats coming in. Ian's like, look, don't worry, mate. We fucking run this fucking island. So, excuse my language. We effing run this effing island, and no one's going to effing touch you and all this sort of stuff. So, we're in the club, and suddenly, and V's like buying all these drinks. He's got his pistol. So as we're going in the club, he's just like this.
Guns illegal out there.
Yeah, but all the mafia, they all know this guy V. He works with them and all this kind of caper, right? So he's like that with the gun. They're like, yeah, go in. I'm like, Christ. And they're like, hello, Giles. I'm like, hello, you know. And I'm just thinking, oh my Lord, this is absolutely nuts. And so we're in the club, and it's starting to get light, and then they start talking about getting some Smarties. Like, right, okay. So I, action man, is like, right, I'm going to go off, sort out the Smarties, and we'll see you at the villa. Like, right, okay. So we get back to the villa. My security lot are all there looking really pissed off with me because these other guys have come along, and V's now there, giving them the large, as well as P, yeah? And my guys are sort of standing there going like this. So we've gone into the villa, and I'm kind of like, what the effing's going on? I don't know. I've given V like the spare room downstairs. And as he's come in the first time, V's sort of gone, oh my God, look at this place type thing, yeah? And he's also said, oh, you're the guy that we've been looking for a while because we need some banking. That's you. We've been trying to find you. And I've gone, right, well, look, here I am, you know. Anyway, Savi's got the nice ensuite room and the blah, blah, blah. And he's come out and we're all sniffing the white and all the rest of it, right? And then suddenly, V starts getting knives out from the kitchen and placing them all around, looking down at the end of the garden. I'm going, V, what's going on? He's like, mate, guy, there's gonna be an effing problem with those guys there. They're plotting against you. There's a plot. It's a conspiracy. I'm like thinking, oh my Lord, what's going on here? Yeah. So he's getting knives out, right? Okay. He's found some masking tape. He's masking tape knives to his stomach, his arm. This guy used to be in the French Foreign Legion, by the way, yeah. And he's done time in Canada for murder, right? And I'm sitting there thinking, how the hell did this happen, right? And so got these bruises down at the end of the garden, the close quarter boys who were well pissed off with this lot coming in, right? Because they're all working for different factions there, right? Different paramilitary organisations. They're like, oh my God, what on earth is going on? And so and there's little old me, you know, and anyone want a line? And so V starts getting knives out. He's putting them all around the villa, everything like this. Suddenly P's starting to get a bit nervous, and now I'm worrying because V's P's mate, and P's looking like he wants to get out of there, right? And suddenly V goes, right, Giles, go upstairs and pack your bag. I'm like, what do you mean, mate? He's like, pack your bag. I'm taking you to Jakarta. You got to get out of here. It's a conspiracy. These guys are going to kill you. Like this, right? I'm thinking, oh my Lord. P is dusting off his pistol, right? V's got his pistol and all the knives all over, like. It's so that if he had to roll around anywhere, there's a knife within grabbing distance, right? Like, what on earth is going on? Yeah, my Lord. And so I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, pack a bag, man. We're going to Jakarta. These guys, it's a conspiracy. They're going to kill you. So I will say at this point that there are quite a few incidents in Bali where people get stood over or they're in a villa and the police or whoever will come and keep them in there and extort them, or there's a shooting and they'll get shot or killed or whatever, right? There's been a couple of incidents like that. So I knew it was a possibility, but when you've been like up for like 4 days straight, you've had death threats and this, you know, your mind is just racing at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And, you know, you can't quite work out what's going on. And particularly with all these different people tipping up and blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm sure I was on his way in with the jubblies, but he never surfaced. And so, you know, and I'm going, V, what are you doing? And he's got all the knives out, all this stuff. He said, pack your bag. So I literally went upstairs to the room and I got like a holdall and I chucked like some of my things in there. And at this point in my life, I had very nice clothes, you know, but I just took some basics, but they were all very, very nice. And like my laptop, my phones and, you know, everything like that, and my chargers, blah, blah, blah. So I come down and suddenly P, who's been cleaning his pistol, has lost the plot and has just suddenly got up, right, run out the front of the... He goes, I'll be back. I'm like, where are you going? Right, so now I've got that lot at the end of the garden and this psychopath, V, right, who's apparently there to protect me, but he's got knives everywhere and all this sort of shit. And he goes, right, we're going, come on, let's go. And so I sling my bag over my shoulder and we walk down to the end of the garden and then there's a massive standoff, mate. Like, what? Big time. But by this point, my close quarter bodyguards governor's tipped up, right? He's a big unit and very well known on the island and is not to be messed with, right? Who knows V? And V he's just like got in bed with the head of the Alaska that week, which is why he was on business and he's going, right, I'm taking him out of here now. And they're going, you're not taking him anywhere, right? So they're kind of doing their job. Their job is to protect me, right? And I think they're thinking this guy's making a bad decision here. And they were right as well, actually, yeah. And I'm thinking, I don't have a choice, right? Okay. And so V's gone, you know, with the gun and the fucking knives and all this, and the effing knives and all this sort of stuff. And he's like, I'm taking him out of here now. So then, my bodyguard guy is like, right, you, how can you betray us? We've been looking after you. And I look, I'm not betraying you. I just, you know, what happened the other day, right? I don't feel safe. I just want to go away for a couple of days and then come back. And then all of a sudden, immigration's tipped up, right? Because I don't have my passport, yeah? And my guys have been keeping immigration at bay for months, yeah? Because I never used to leave the island, right? I used to pay to get a stamp and all that, yeah? So my passport's gone to Australia, Malaysia, but I'm still in Bali, yeah? And so the guy from immigration's turned up, and actually my bodyguard said to him, just give him his passport, yeah? And he said, all right, you can go, but, you know, we're not helping you anymore. So I was like, right, you know. So I'm on the phone to P, yeah? He's supposed to be my mate. He's brought all this lot with him. Where the f*** are you, mate? He said, oh, I've just come round to a mate's. So I've gone, well, I'll come with you. I don't want to go with... He goes, no, you can't, yeah? So it's actually one of my bodyguards that drove me down into Seminyak, which is where V wanted to meet me, right? Okay? So he's dropped me off in Seminyak. I've got my bag, and then he's tipped up, and we've gone down like one of these like tiny alleyways where all the, you know, the tourist shops are and everything, up some steps, and like into this room. This is my girl's room. I'm like, right, okay, yeah. And I'm like, look, what were we doing? And he goes, right, we got to get out of here. I got to get you to Jakarta. You got to go to Jakarta. I'm like, look, mate, at this point, he starts getting a bit aggressive, right? He's like, look, we're going to Jakarta. It's not safe for you here. I'm like, right, okay. But in this room, right, okay, which was tucked away and all the rest of it, he's like, you can't tell anyone about this place. You can't tell anyone about this place. I'm like, look, who am I going to tell, you know? But he's got plastic bags all the way around the room that are like go bags. Change of clothes, deodorant, shoes. He's obviously at this sort of thing the whole time, right? So he's had a change and all the rest of it. He's, you know, and meanwhile, this guy's been on shabu and God knows what. And so, you know, he's fiddling with everything and just driving me mad. And I'm thinking, what the hell, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Plus, I've still got a load of white on me. So I was like, look, if we're going to Jakarta, I've got to take this. He was like, okay, give it to me, I'll plug it. I'm like, right, okay, up to you, mate. Yeah. So we head to the airport. Now, over there, you can fly internally without a passport, right? And so you can use just a photocopy, I think. So we've gone through immigration, all the rest of it, and got on a plane to Jakarta, yeah? And he's like, look, we got our business here. I'm running the floor. Right, this is the floor manager, by the way, of the business, who happens to be ex-Foreign Legion with a pistol and all this sort of stuff. Proper gangster thing. I'm just thinking, oh my Lord, what's happening here? And so, because at this point, a lot of these people wanted to use me because I was very good at it and the best at it. And I actually had a formal FX structure and formal FX network, you know, which they weren't used to. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, we fly to Jakarta, and then, you know, I'm asking, look, how do you, because he'd been trying to romance me about moving to Jakarta. We'll get you a villa. And I don't know about something like this, as he's looking around my absolute castle of a place, but I got a spot from my flat across the pool where I can see you. I'm like, right, I'm not quite sure what that means, right? Okay, it's like a double-edged sword. And he goes, and then, you know, you can get a villa and all this. So I'm asking innocently, okay, and then, you know, what are the schools like here? And, you know, how do you get around and everything? And he goes, oh, so we rented a big people carrier from the airport to his house, yeah? And at which point I call my missus. I'm like, babe, I'm in Jakarta, you know, and then he gets on the phone and he goes, look, I want you to know I got him, okay? He's going to be okay. And don't worry, we're going to look after him. And all this. My wife must be just thinking, what's going on? You know what I mean? Right? And I'm thinking, what's going on? Anyway, so we get to his house. He said, I've got a spare room that you can stay in until we can secure this villa across the pool. So we get to his house. This house was on top of a shopping mall, right? So there are houses built on the roof of this shopping mall with a swimming pool and everything, but, you know, and not being disrespectful or anything, but it was tiny. Yeah, it was extremely tiny, and it was, you know, how to put it, not a family man's house, if you understand what I mean, right? And the bedroom that he had was his closet, was actually his closet. Okay, the next door to his bedroom was the room that he was using as a closet, and this is where I'm supposed to stay. And I look on the bedside table, and there's syringes sticking out of the top of a thing, because he was on steroids, right? And I'm just thinking, you're going to have to, like, placate your way through this. And so the next day, right, I know, so when I first arrived there, they wanted to put me up in a hotel, yeah? And he's like, right, you're going to meet my business partner, who I'd spoken to on the phone, who was a London boy, deep, gravelly voice, typical, do you know what I mean, right? Anyway, so we ticked up at the hotel. This guy's turned up. He's like, all right, and all this sort of stuff, yeah? And they've taken me up to we'll take you up to your room. I'm like, what do you need to take me up to my room for? And they've come in the room, and he's like, right, we've got some brass, right? I'm like, oh, mate, what on earth, you know? So suddenly these two brass turn up, which they proceed to f*** right in front of me, yeah? And then they start getting the shabu out. And I'm just thinking, this is all wrong. This is not good. Yeah, and then he's going, you see my mate Giles? Why don't you go and take care of him? Because he's just, I'm like, look, V, I'm all right, thanks, mate, yeah? And all the rest of it. I could not wait for them to get out of the room. And then this is like a situation like in Wolf of Wall Street or whatever, right? With these type of characters. And I just thought, this is not where I want to be, right? But at that time, these were the guys that were supposedly going to be offering me protection, but also they were working for a business that I could do business for their bosses, and also some other contacts there. And so eventually they left, right? Yeah. And I can just remember like lying in the bed thinking, my God, this is like my worst nightmare of like what I want to be, where I want to be, who I'm with, or whatever. I'm lying in bed the next morning, boom, the door goes, it's V, and he's got a key card for the room, right? Which is strange in itself. Like, what are you doing? You didn't know I had a key card, did you? I'm like, well, no, I didn't, but also why? Yeah. And it's like they wanted to keep me under lock and key the moment I got there, yeah? So he's like, right, we decided it's better that you don't stay in the hotel, so you're going to come and stay with us. I'm like, right, okay, don't worry, I got a spare room and all this sort of stuff. And as I just mentioned, I get there, it's his closet, right? And there's no curtain on the window and all this sort of stuff. And it's not a family man's house. And he goes, our house is like Bang Bros, bro, okay? We do more brass in there in a day than you would ever do. And I'm like, look, mate, I don't actually do brass, but anyway, you know. And when we turn up, he unlocks the house, and there's this girl in there, right? Oh, this is my girlfriend, who was brass, and he'd locked her in there since he'd gone to Bali. She hadn't left the gaff, mate. Poor thing. And I'm looking at her going, are you all right? Like this. And she's like, yeah, no, I'm okay. Anyway, all really quite heavy sort of stuff, yeah. Anyway, the next day, he's disappeared back to Bali, right? And I'm left in this house with this other character, yeah. And he gave me a key to. He didn't want to give me a key to begin with. He wanted to lock me in the house all day, right? I'm like, mate, what are you talking about? Yeah. There was a big mall next to where their house was, where I wanted to go out every day, sit there with my laptop, do some work, blah blah blah. So I've gone there, and I'm sitting in the Starbucks, and I get a phone call from V. Hey, G, it's V. Right, we need an account. I got, what do you mean? He goes, right, well, we're going to start doing some bet. We need an account from Lebanon. Just like you're ordering it off the menu. Yeah, I'll have a bank account from Syria, please. Or, oh no, can you get me an hors d'oeuvre out of Iran? Or, no, mate, right? And so I go, what? He goes, yeah, no, we need an account in Lebanon. I'm like, right, okay. So I put down the phone. My mind starts working overtime a bit. And one of the guys from the lodge in Singapore was Lebanese. So I rung him up. I said, right, look, they're actually one of the biggest jewellers in the world, these guys. They do the diamond bras for Victoria's Secret and all that sort of thing. And so, I pitched him the scenario, yeah, where, because look, basically, if you've got liquidity pools in two different countries, you can just match them out, swap them out, and do you know what I mean? So I was like, look, I don't know what your situation is, but I've got someone in Lebanon that wants some money in Singapore. Could you just do a swap? And originally he said yes, right? So I've called V back after 20. I go, yeah, okay, we got it. Are you kidding? This guy, he's got, right? He's obviously like bragging off to the people that he's with, and I can hear in the background he's having like difficult conversations with Indonesians about, we got the guy, we got the account, and all this sort of thing, right? So, anyway, so then, just prior to this, as I'm being walked to the house, as we're going through the mall, V decides to stop off and get some fake clobber, mall grab bag stuff, and insists on buying me some SIM cards and a taser. You'll need that, take that, take that. I'm like thinking, my God, right? Anyway, also at this time, I got a phone call from one of the owners of their business to go and meet them about doing some banking for them, right? So this guy was English, and I'm just going to call the person TW, okay? But one of the biggest gangsters in Indonesia, mate, okay? And he's just had big court cases with regards to Bali over multi-million money laundering deals and all this sort of stuff. They wanted 30 accounts just to begin with, right? And I'm like, right, okay. Before we go down any of this track, I want to secure my position, a salary and commission, which I did, and also a hotel suite to live in and the apartments that I could live in when my wife and kids come. I'm now trying to move away from these characters, right, and we agreed all of that, actually, and it was, quite a healthy basic, nothing that I hadn't seen before in life, but certainly was up there, as well as living arrangements in a condominium, for the girls and the wife and all of that sort of thing. And I was steering away from what he was asking for to doing things my way, like officially and through the business and what you need to have bits of paper-wise and all the rest of it. And so then I managed to get to this hotel, at which point I get a call from, where are you? Where are you? I'm like, well, I'm in the hotel. Show me. So I have to go on video call. He goes, what the F are you doing in, that's so-and-so. This guy's been up 3 or 4 days at this point in Bali on God knows what, right? And he goes, if you turn the video call off, then I'm going to get my guys down there. The Tigers, one of the biggest gangs in Jakarta, will come down there and get hold of you, mate, right? So I then had to have him on video call, right? And he's sitting there like this, like watching down the phone, as I'm eating my food. And then I go up and go, look, V, I need to go to the toilet now. I don't care. You don't turn the phone off. You don't turn it off. I'm like, right, okay, so sit there, do my ablution. I'm like, look, mate, I need to have a shower. I don't care. So I'm having to have a shower with this geezer, right, on video call, paranoid off his nut, with the threat of the Tiger Gang from Jakarta coming down to take me out if, right? Anyway, so then I get a call, and he's like, this is the guy, and he's got a guy in Bali who is the head of the mafia there, He goes, this is the guy, he's a proper money broker, he's a proper trader, he's the guy that's going to be, this guy's the real, and trying to show me off to this guy, right? And this guy's sort of looking at the camera going like this. I'm just sitting there going like this, right? Anyway, my God. Right? So at this point, I feel a sort of general level of security because I'm in this hotel suite and I've met their bosses, right, and secured a deal off from what they're chatting about, right, and I've arranged for my wife and kids to come over. So I've not seen them for 3 months, right. Now you need to understand, I'm a family man, Sean, and I love my wife and I love my 2 kids, and they used to come everywhere with me. Even when I was DJing, they used to come on my motorbikes every day for, a bit of fun. We were a real tight family unit. And so when they had gone back to Singapore, it was a massive hole in my life, right? Emotionally, mentally, everything. I spent all day, every day with my missus throughout our marriage. She was my best friend, everything. So to see them again and to be able to turn around to her and go, look, I've sorted things out, okay? I've got a salary. We're going to be doing FX for this person. We're going to be living in these condominiums. Please come and check out Jakarta, etc. And so arranged for them to come over, right? Then suddenly this Lebanese deal starts hotting up massive, right? And so I've arranged to match out funds through various bank accounts, shall we say, yeah? And ending up basically in Singapore, and then from Singapore to Bali, yeah? So one night this character B grabs my phone and starts going through my phone. Who's this person? Who's that person? Reading the messages and everything like that, yeah? And then proceeds to call my contacts, yeah? And say that he's a debt collector and that I owe money and that they need to do what he says instead of what I'm saying, right? Yeah? So then V is over in Bali, right? I've got P, who I've left in charge of the villa, and please don't let anybody take anything. It's got all my family stuff in there, right? All my wardrobe, all my missus' wardrobe, the girls' room, all their clothes, all their toys, all my motorbikes, my Volkswagen Combi van, all of my possessions, right? And I keep hearing V's been at the villa, yeah, plus my 2 dogs that are there. And this guy P is supposed to be looking. And I said to him on the phone, "What are you doing, letting this geezer into the villa?" He goes, "What do you want me to stop him with? An effing bazooka, right? You know, he's out of good." And then I get on the video. He's got the hugest black eye that you've ever seen in your life because V has done him over, basically, right? Yeah. And V's calling me, going, why is P here? Why, you can't trust this guy. It's a conspiracy. And I go, look, mate, he's the one that introduced me to you, right? What's going on? Yeah. And he goes, right, we're going to pick up all your stuff and send it to Jakarta. So I'm like, right, okay. In hindsight, this is actually them taking all my things, yeah. But I was so off my head, emotionally drained, mentally drained, physically drained, that, it went on, yeah? So the first night that my wife and kids are turning up, I was at the hotel, yeah? And B calls me from work, right? Hello, mate, yeah, right, where are you? I'm like, well, I'm sending one of the lads down to come and pick you up so that, we need to have a meeting. So I'm like, right, okay. This absolute tank of a geezer, mate, turns up, he's one of the tigers, right, and taking me back to their house and tipped up there, and then B's just giving him $300. You can go for the night, he's staying here. Right, and so this guy's gone. I'm like, what do you mean I'm staying here? He goes, you're staying here. I'm like, why? No, you're staying here. I'm like, what do you mean? It starts getting a bit funny and a bit nasty, right? Yeah. And he goes, V's coming back from Bali, yeah. And look, you're not fucking going anywhere. You're at it, mate. You're at it. Because I'd gone off to go and see some of my contacts in Jakarta, yeah. Some of my old clients from Singapore, blah blah blah. And this is beyond their mental capacity to understand that I might actually know people, and they think that I'm off doing shenanigans, right? Where did you go earlier? Who's he? And all this sort of stuff, yeah? And I'm like, mate, these are my clients from Singapore, blah, blah, blah. So I'm forced to stay at their house, and then V's coming from Bali, yeah? Like, right, okay, yeah. And meanwhile, 2 of my motorbikes have been put in a container to come back to Jakarta. So I had a beautiful chopper and a beautiful cafe racer, handmade from Deus actually, right? Which is a motorcycle lifestyle custom brand. And so V comes in late at night, right? Okay. And I've been forced to sit outside in this like barred off area at the back of the villa. And he's come in, he's looked at me like, you stay there, like this. He's gone upstairs and they've gone up there and they've basically smoked a load of shabu, right? And he's come down, he's like, right, are you trying to play games and all this sort of stuff? I'm like, no, what do you mean? Yeah, and they've also, I has turned up as well, Action Man, yeah, right? So I'm like to I, look, my wife and kids are just turning up. These guys wouldn't even let me leave to go and get food to put in the fridge at the hotel for when my wife and kids arrived. So I said to look, can you do us a favour, mate? Can you just go down to the hotel and make sure my wife and kids are all right and, you know, just let them know I'm okay? And so he's like, yeah, okay. So, so this is when I first see their guns, right? So they start waving their guns around, just showing off a little bit, right? Nothing much to it. But I'm also thinking, what the fuck? Yeah. Meanwhile, they've brought in their hacker, yeah, who works for them, right? And all the rest of it. And I'm just thinking, I don't want to be here at all. How does this happen? And she's like, right, your motorbikes are coming. But he's had a fallout with some bird in Bali and he's got all paranoid. And so the bikes are turning up on a container and they're going, right, are you ready to go and fight for your bikes? Because that bitch in Bali, she's done something. I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, she found out about the bikes and now she sent this gang to like come and do us all over or something, right? So it's like a comedy sketch from a film. We are then going downstairs in the elevator. They've got pistols behind them like this. Another guy's got a piano leg in his hand. Another guy's got a piano leg in his hand. Another one's got a baseball bat. And I've got a biro. Yeah? Because it's all, I was like, right, I've got a biro. Okay, just in case this all goes off. And we come down in the elevator to the ground level and walk out. It was almost like you could hear the music from Reservoir Dogs, yeah? Right? And everybody just stops and looks as these weird group of people walk past, all tooled up, right, to go into the car park of this shopping mall and housing development to go and meet this gang from Bali that have come to steal the motorbikes and all the rest of it. And he's gone, right, are you ready to fight for your bike like this? I'm like, yeah, okay, let's do it. And so we then start going up through the car parks trying to find them, yeah, right? And at one point, on one level, and so we're moving through the car park and the guys are like jumping through the car, like a scene out of some film, yeah, and I'm just standing at the back with my biro going, oh, God, you know, this is a bit much. And there was this huge pit bull, mate, on a chain, right, over in the corner of one of these places. And I just thought, oh, my God, they're going to let that thing go in a minute, yeah? And meanwhile, they've got their guns and all this. All I've got is a big biro, right? Which, you know, I don't think it's going to stop any monster. Anyway, they eventually locate where these guys are, these two poor guys, mate, right, that have nicely cased up the motorbikes, cushioned them all up, put them in a good day, brought them to Jakarta personally, right? Suddenly they're set upon by this group of animals, yeah? And he's like, did the bitch tell you? Did the bitch tell you? And they're like, what do you mean? We're just dropping off the motorbikes and all this. And he's like, open the effing case, open the effing case. So they open it up and sure enough, my two motorbikes are in there, right? So we wheel them off and then he turns around to me and he goes, these are mine now. And I just thought, oh my God, here we go, yeah? Until you do your work for us, these are mine. I just thought, right, here we are. Yeah, just as I thought. And so then there was, of course, the houses are on the top floor. So I then had to push this chopper up all the roadway up to the roof, and V's got the other one. Then he thinks this is some sort of competition, right? This is a guy that does steroids and weight. You think you're quicker than me? You think you're quicker than me? And he starts like pushing the bike up, racing it up the stairway, yeah. And I'm pushing mine up, barely can make it because I'm not the biggest of people. Get up to the top, park them outside the front, and I want to see my wife and kids. And at this point, I tips up, yeah. And I say, mate, please get me out of here because, you know, I want to go and see the girls. And my missus says, like, right, okay. So he talks to them and he goes, look, his wife and kid are at the hotel. I'm going to take him back there. You know, you can meet him tomorrow or whatever, right? So they reluctantly agree, yeah? And we get downstairs in the taxi and I turn around to I. And I's there as the bagman and the guarantor for the mafia, yeah? Right, that this money's for. And I turned around to him and I said, mate, this is wrong. Those guys are going to F this up big time. And they're trying to use me as a scapegoat. I don't like it. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, no, I know. I think you're right. Right? So in the taxi ride back to the hotel, I explained to him about banking and the banking process and how it works. Right? And the route that the money's taking, how long it's going to take, and why I'm doing it like that, right? He's quite an intelligent guy, and he soaked it all up. And, you know, I said, look, I'm not being funny, mate, but those two are going to F this up big time, the way they're behaving, and they're going to blame me for it. And he goes, yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you're right. So I said, okay, so, you know, are you going to help me? And he said, yeah, no, I will help you because I'm here to actually guarantee the money. That's what my job is. So I'm going to make sure that you're all right, yeah? And I believed him, yeah? So get back to the hotel and finally see my wife and kids, right? Yeah, and I didn't tell them anything of what had just gone on. I'd just been running through car parks with guns, pushing motorbikes, paranoid schizophrenics, high on shabu, right? Having just been shimmied out of there by this action man character, yeah, who's an assassin for the mafia in Bali, right? I'm like, hello, darling, how are you? Yes. And so, obviously it was great to see them, yeah. And unfortunately, I had been partaking in a few substances whilst he was waiting for them at the hotel. And the missus had found it when she got there and thought it was me. And so there was that drama to deal with. Luckily, and God bless him, I said, look, that was me. I apologise, yeah. So that was okay, but obviously the missus wasn't particularly happy. And she actually said to me, look, this is your last chance, mate. You've got to sort things out. And she wasn't wrong either, you know, yeah. And so the next day we get up, we go downstairs to the breakfast, full English breakfast or whatever, right? And, you know, the girls are happy, blah, blah, blah. And I get a phone call from V. I've made it back to the hotel, and the following morning we've all gone down for breakfast. We've eaten our breakfast, and we're just finishing up in the dining hall there, and the phone goes. It's V. Where are you? Again, normal question, where are you? And I'm like, well, I'm in the hotel, you know, with my wife and kids. He's like, right, we got to meet. You got to come to the mall, which is next to their house, and we got to meet. I said, okay, yeah, I can, no problem. So he named, I said, look, I'm with the wife and children, you know, you can meet them, blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah, great. And so we then go off to this mall, and downstairs in the mall to where the restaurants are, and go into the cafe where we've arranged to meet. And it's sort of a cafe that's got sofas as well as tables and all the rest of it. So I pick where there's two sofas right by the gangway where people are walking past, etc. In comes V with Action Man. Hello, hi, how are you? This is my wife, blah, blah, blah. He's very polite and everything. And he goes, can you come over here and talk with me over here? So I'm like, yeah, okay. And then Action Man sits down opposite my wife and kids, who he knows, so he's chatting with them. And we sit down and he goes, right, I hate effing kids and all the rest of it. And he grabs my arm, yeah, and he says, you're coming back to the house to do this deal. I'm like, what do you mean? You know, we've got it all set up. You know, when the money, they're sending the money and you got to come to the house to do the deal. I'm like, look, I'm not quite. He goes, you're coming to the house. Or you see that guy there? He's going to hurt your wife and kids. And out in the corridor, I've got members of the army that are watching you, and all the way out into so you can't get away anywhere, all right? Or else these guys are going to grab you up and your family. So I'm like, look, I can come back to the house, but I want you to guarantee, right, that nothing's going to happen to me, because I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm doing exactly what you've asked me to do, right? And nothing's going to happen. You just need to let the wheels turn. He goes, I don't care. You're coming back to the house to do it. I said, look, again, like I said, I'll do that, but you have to guarantee that, you know, I can leave after it's done, right? And also, you know, nothing's going to happen to me whilst I'm there, and also nothing's going to happen to my wife and kids or whatever, right? So I'm looking over at Action Man, and he's looking at me like this and kind of giving me a bit of a wink, yeah? Like, play along with this for the moment, right? So I've gone back to the table. I said, right, I've got to go and do this deal. I's going to look after you. And I look at him and I go, are you going to look after them, mate? And he said, yeah, no, I will. And again, he gave me sort of a little bit of a wink or whatever, right? And so I said, you know, we're doing it. And so my missus is like, right, okay. And she can kind of sense something's a bit wrong, yeah? And so off I go. And as we're walking down to exit the mall to go to the house, I realise I haven't got any chargers with me or anything, right? So I say to him, look, I need a charger because I don't want something to go wrong whilst I'm processing all of this and for you to blame me. So we go into a shop, he buys like a charger or whatever. Anyway, we get back to the house and he changes straight away and he turns into this nasty, nasty animal with his like tongue hanging out the side of his mouth. Like there's something mentally wrong with this guy, right? And he goes, you just got to wait here until B comes. He's like flicking the windows and all this sort of stuff. Then B turns up. Then the guns come out. And they're pointing the guns at my head. And he's taken his watch off and put it in his pocket like he's going to smack me around and everything. And they were just behaving so irrationally. And I was... This is the most scared I've ever been in my life. And then he starts getting paranoid. Are you FBI? Are you FBI? Of course I'm not FBI, right? You know, are you this? Are you that? Are you trying to steal the money? This is when I first hear about... I go, why would I do that? We've got more business to do. It doesn't make sense, right? I'm going to get my commission. And also, not being funny, mate, but this is only $250,000 that we're doing here. And, you know, I used to turn over $2 to $5 million a day, mate. It's not really something that's worth, you know, doing all that for. You're lying. Then he starts looking at my jewellery. I had some beautiful bracelets that my wife had bought me on, thinking that they're bugged, that they've got bugs in them, and they make me strip naked, right? Are you wearing a wire? There's a gardener out in the... He's an agent. Then they get the rose clippers out, holding them to my toes, guns to my head. Are you trying to? And then they get my phones, right? Now these guys have probably been banging on the shabu for about 3 or 4 days at this point, paranoid off their minds. And at this point, I have to use all skills that I've been blessed by the good Lord above to try and placate the situation. Also, to let them know that they're being unreasonable about what they're saying. also trying to display their lack of knowledge about the banking industry, how it works, how long things take, and why what they're saying is incorrect, without upsetting them in their ego. And then they start getting my phones and start reading conversations, but parts of conversations. Who's this guy? Who's that guy? What do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? Start photographing it all and all the rest of it, right? Yeah. And this went on for hours, mate. Absolute hours. And I can remember watching a program about people being interviewed under duress and things like that, and a technique that you can do where if you tap the table with a rhythm, yeah, it helps placate other people, and also it puts them off track with what they're thinking because you're setting a new rhythm, right? So I started doing this. I started thinking outside the box big time about how to get these guys just to calm down and leave me alone, right? Because then they say, oh, we've contacted your account holders, we've told them that you owe us money, and now they have to do what we say. At which point I just think, right, what is going on now? So look, that was one of the most, up until this point, before getting into prison, one of the most stressful times of my life. This is a build-up of months of death threats and blood and now I'm in this situation. And all I could think of was my missus, because we've got such a very close connection. Now, she is a very clever person. And at about 4 o'clock, after I was sending her messages telepathically, it's all I could think of doing was, babe, do something about this. This is, right, this is out of hand. Anyway, at about 4 o'clock, they'd done all their shopping and everything. They were back at the hotel, and I, Action Man, was there with them, been playing with the kids. And, he'd also sort of said to her, look, these guys are going to mess this up type thing. And at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, she turned around to him. She said, there's something wrong. He hasn't called. There's something wrong. You need to go and get him. Go and get him. Right? And so suddenly these guys, right, had like gone over the edge with psychosis and all the rest of it. And they suddenly were worried about all the stuff that they'd got on their... So they started deleting everything, right? And then they disappeared upstairs and left me there on my own, right? At which point I grabbed the phone and I called my missus. I said, babe, this... And she said, don't worry, I's on his way. He's going to come and get you, yeah? He's coming to get you, mate. We know that there's a problem. And then I called one of the account holders and I said, mate, I'm sitting here, right? And you've got to be so careful. Anything that these guys say or ask you, what you say, they are taking verbatim and reading whatever they want into to try. And, I'm being held hostage, mate. I've been kidnapped, basically, right? Please. And he's like, okay, don't worry, blah, 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 blah. And it was those 2 minutes that I got to communicate that I just thought, right, I's on his way, yeah? Blah, 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 blah. They've gone off upstairs and then they've come back down and started playing a little bit like goody two-shoes, yeah? Long story short, right, okay, this money was for immigration and the mafia in Bali, and these guys had tried to divert it off to a police account in Jakarta. Because you've got these, everybody's trying to get their bit, right? You're into rivalries between all the factions over there, yeah? So they tried to do a money grab to the police in Jakarta so that they could then carry on with their nefarious affairs, right? Having done them a good turn, blah, blah, blah. And also, they were trying to get up the rungs in the ladder within their organisation by saying that they could now provide banking for their company by taking my banking network and all my software that I'd invented, right, to run the business and all this sort of stuff, yeah? And these guys are table turners, mate, yeah? With all the goodwill there is, sorry, mate, but you don't know what you're doing, yeah? Right? And they're trying to take over an industry and they've got no knowledge of whatsoever, just so that they can look good and rise up the ranks in whatever world they exist in. So about an hour later, one long, very hour later, the door goes and it's I, yeah? And he knocks on the door, and as he leans in the door, he sees me and he winks and goes, don't worry, mate, I'm going to get you out of here. Like that, yeah? And I went, thank fuck, like this, right? He's come in, and these two guys are acting so strange and weird, yeah, that he can't get out with me. And he's saying, look, Pac H is in town, which is the head of one of the heads of the mafia, right, who's overseeing this deal for immigration. He's here, right? And, you know, he's saying he's downstairs. He wants G to come with me down. No, we're not letting him out of the house. He's tried to do this, he's tried to do that, and all this sort of thing, right? It's got to the point where Action Man is scared himself, right? So I've been sectioned off again into the rear outdoor area that's all barred off, and I'm just sitting there like this, and he's come out and he's gone, look, mate, I don't know what I can do to like get us out of here, but this is really serious, mate. These guys are, you know, they've lost it, and you know the guns are going to go off if anything happens. So they've gone off upstairs for a bit, and so I gets on the phone and rings Pac H, the mafia's son. We'll call him R. He's gone, hello mate, look, I'm here with G. B and V have completely lost it, mate, and they're trying to steal the money, yeah, and blame G for it. So he's gone, let me talk to G. I've never spoken to this guy in my life, right? And he goes, hi, look, I'm R, I'm son of Pac H. Let me ask you a question, are you being held against your will? And I was like, yeah, I am. And he said, okay, are they doing X, Y? And I was like, yeah, they are. And he said, okay, stay there, I'm sending my dad round, right? So I'm like, okay, please help me, mate. I just want to get the F out of here. Yeah, and I want to make sure, all the time I was saying, I want to make sure this deal happens properly for you. Yeah, that's what my job is, right? And these guys are getting in the way of it, right? But also, you know, they've stripped me naked, they've held guns to my head, this, that, and all the rest of it. They've whipped me away from in front of my wife and kids. This is an absolute, and so he's gone, you know, so he said, right, just stay there. I'm sending my dad round, right? And I'll never forget it. I's gone back into the house, timestamp that. I's gone back into the house and is trying to just chat with them in the living room or whatever, right? And I'm sitting out in this outdoor area that's barred off. There's a swimming pool there, and there's like mist coming off the swimming pool now. It's nighttime, there's a bridge over it. Suddenly, once again, yeah, the Reservoir Dogs music, these characters start walking across the bridge. There's this little guy at the front, Chinese Indonesian, and then these big units behind, and they're all looking at me like this. And their mannerisms, mate, were just like whew, scary. They were kind of like this, yeah, right? And so as they're coming across, right, and so suddenly, just before this happened, B&V are notified that Pac H is on the way. R's running, my dad's coming round. These guys, mate, suddenly, I've never seen two people just, they started sweeping the place up. Pac H is coming, they shit themselves, mate, these two guys. Absolutely bricked it, mate, right? And they started chatting and trying to get their stories straight and all this sort of thing, yeah? Anyway, right, I'm sitting out there like this, and I mean, I did look petrified, mate, and I was, right? You know, this is not my world at all, yeah? These guys have come in the house, and some of them have come out and looked outside at me like this, and they went, are you G? And I went, yeah, and they said, stay there like this. And then they just went and sat themselves around the house like this. One of them's like leaning back on the sofa like this. Mate, these guys mean business, dude. Right, okay. And another one has come out, a sort of larger guy who's with the Lascar, yeah, and he's gone, don't worry, I'm here to protect you like this, yeah. And so then I can just hear all this chatting. So Pack H is sitting at the kitchen table like this, yeah. A quiet man, yeah, but the look in his eyes, mate, right? And so he sat V down. V, you'll tell me what is going on. V sat there and giving him all his bullshit. And then B, the other one's sat down there like this, yeah? And at this point, one of the guys has gone to me like this. Come in. So I've sat down on the sofa like this. He's sitting beside me. They've got these units placed all around like this. And this is the first time I met Pack H. And he's sitting at the kitchen table and he just turned around and he just took one look at me like this. And he knew this guy's not up to anything. Do you know what I mean? He saw the look on my face, mate. And he turns around and he looks at him. There's all this, and he goes, I'm taking G out of here now. And V started popping off, Matt, you're not, and all this. And they, you know, they got a bit forced and they say he's coming out of here now. So they're like, get your stuff, we're going, like this, yeah? So I just picked myself up and I had to walk past him as I'm going out of the house. And he went for me, they held him back, right? Car pulls up outside the front of the house. I'm put in the back, 2 units either side, 2 in the back like this. The driver's there and they're all going, are you like this? Then Pack H gets in the front and he goes, if you steal my money, I'll kill you. And I just started laughing and I went, there's no effing chance of that. Let's effing go. And they all just started laughing and we drove off, right? Yeah. Yeah. And I'm thinking, my Lord.
God.
Oh, my Lord. So the long and the short of it is, this money had ended up in this copper's account. So they've forced it back out. And Pack H has said, look, we want to do it your way, yeah? And I said, well, my way is the safe way, it's the legal way, and you'll get your money, yeah? So I double-dipped him on the commission coming back round, and rightly so as well, you know, because obviously all these people need paying again. They've already done their bit. Now it's got to go back through. So, but it didn't end there, right? So we go and stay in a hotel with Pack H and everything. And I said, look, you know, you don't know me, right? But this is me. And then I got my laptop out. I showed him my website and my company and everything. And he just sat there. You and me are going to make a lot of money. You know, we can set up another company in Bali. Don't worry about anything. You're with me now. And this other guy's trying to say, look, if anybody sees you with this guy, they're going to know you're mafia. And nobody's going to touch you, even if you go for a drink in a restaurant, whatever. And so I'm like, right, okay, you know. And so at that point, I got on the bed and I fell asleep, right?
Can I just ask what the status of your wife is at this point?
My wife is in the hotel with the kids.
She doesn't know you've been saved by these guys or moved?
Not at this point.
Okay.
Right. So, so sorry, obviously on the way to the hotel, I've called her and I've said, right, I'm out. You know, and come with us as well. Sorry, Aya's come with us as well, right? And we're all having a bit of a laugh about it and all this sort of thing. Because he kept saying, if you f*** me, G, I will kill you. And I'm saying, mate, look, there's no chance of that. I'm not actually worried because that's not my intent at all. And I wasn't worried with that because there's no way I'm going to do that, right? I said, look, just make sure I can do what I need to do, right? And then everything will happen properly. So at which point he's then turned around and instructed everybody they have to do what I say, right? And so, and then I was allocated like this personal body who even slept next to me on the bed. He said, we will make sure nothing happens to you. This is the loyalty of these guys, yeah? Right, he laid down next to me on the bed. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's going, I'm sleeping here as well, mate. Nobody's going to touch you. I'm like, right, okay, fair enough. You know, do you know what I mean? Like, you're not quite my cup of tea, love, but you do know I'm married, right? But anyway, so I then just collapsed, exhausted and fell asleep. Wake up in the morning, Pack H has had to go off and take care of some other business, right? So they're like, right, you've got to go and stay in a hotel that we say, yeah? And I'm like, look, what's the point? I've got this other hotel where your wife and kids have to come over where we are. So we check into one of the grubbiest, tiniest hotels I've ever seen in my life. Because at this point, we're operating on the immigration budget, right? And we're in there, and we got in there for about 2 hours. And I said, look, we can't stay here. We've got to go, yeah? And we've got to find somewhere else. So we found another hotel, right? And meanwhile, I got the Alaska boys coming in and out and all this sort of stuff. I's in the hotel with us. At this point, I trusted him with my life, yeah? And so he said, right, I'm going to be with you at all times, make sure nothing happens, yeah? And so that night, right, I'm in bed with my wife and kids sleeping in the bed, a tap on my shoulder, and I look up, and it's one of these guys from immigration. Gee, come with me. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, come with me. And they kept going over the same details about whether I'd stolen money or not, right, or tried to steal money. And I kept like repeating it. He's sitting at the table like this, and he's like, right, come down to the car park with me for a minute. I want to just... So I wake up and I go, look, is it all right if I go with this guy? He's got the big badge around his neck and all the rest of it. He used to wear like a flat cap, right? And I've gone down to the car park with him because he said Pack H wanted to talk to me. I had to go off and talk to Pack H again, right? Get down to the car park, there's a few phone calls and all this sort of thing. And then he parks the car back up and walks me back up to the car park. I found out later B&V were in the car park and they were waiting to shoot me.
Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah.
Were you betrayed?
Nearly, very nearly, very nearly. Had I not managed to, and this one particular guy from Alaska who could speak English saved my life, basically.
How?
Because he was able to interpret everything properly into Indonesian. These guys, a lot of them don't speak any English whatsoever, right? And so they're going off broken English and, all the rest of it. Meanwhile, B&V have been flooding these guys with phone calls since we left. He's done this, just chatting absolute nonsense, right? And so, these guys don't know what the what is, right? And they've done a lot of work with B&V before, in their extortion rackets, whatever they are.
Where's your main protector at this point?
My main protector at this point was I.
But what about the main mafia man that saved you?
Yeah, well, exactly. So he didn't know this had gone on, right?
What was his name again?
Pack H.
Pack H. So
Yeah.
this is happening unawares to him.
Yeah.
But his guys are still protecting you.
Yeah, his guys are still protecting me, right? And so, because I think what happened was they were going to take me to see Pack H, and then they found out B&V were in the bait, so they got me out of there and back up to my hotel room to protect me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How come V has not backed off?
Because he's a relentless, absolute animal. This tale continues into prison, mate, all right?
God.
Yeah. So, anyway, the next day, we get up and basically charge across Jakarta in some rented vehicles, all with the bodyguards, my wife, my kids. And this is the last time I saw them, was at Jakarta airport, and they got on a plane to Singapore, and I went back to Bali.
Did your wife have a conversation with you at that point about what's happening?
Yeah.
What did that go like?
Not very well, poor girl, right? And, her job at that point is to protect her babies, right?
She must have been worried sick.
Yeah, she was, mate. She's a strong woman, yeah. And
were you just glad they were getting away to safety?
I was glad they were getting away to safety, And I couldn't believe this had gone on, with my children there and her and all the rest of it. This is an FX transaction is something to do 20 times a day. And these guys made such a meal out of it, unnecessarily paranoid, drug fueled, all the rest of it. There's an absolute S show, mate, right? Never seen anything like it in my life, yeah? Anyway, so I get back to Bali, right? I'm met by undercover immigration officers there.
So you're back to where it all began.
All tooled
Bali.
up. Well, because that's where I live, and that's where I wanted to go back to. Now all this drama was over, right?
You thought it was over.
Or thought it was over. Anyway, so I'm met by Pat Madday, who's one of the Alaska bodyguards that works for Pac H, is with me at all times now, and he's controlling the immigration guys as well. So they're all pistoled up, and I've been allocated 2 or 3 immigration bodyguards on rotation 24 hours a day, right? So we went and got a McDonald's, and then we went to these hotel villas, into a hotel villa, right? And these guys are downstairs tooled up. I'm upstairs in the room absolutely bricking myself, and at this point has decided to be my personal bodyguard and come everywhere with me, and I insisted on that because he was a good go-between between these Alaska guys. He spoke Indonesian, plus also I'd seen the colour of his muster, if you like, by him coming to dig me out of this gaff, right? And so he had a room upstairs, and I had an adjacent room, and I had these guys downstairs. And then, I's getting phone calls from V. Where is he? Where is he? I'm going to kill him. Blah, blah, blah. So everyone's on high alert, right? Yeah. Then the next day, Pac H comes. Hey, G, Mr. G, he used to call me, Mr. G, are you okay? Don't worry, everything's okay. I'll talk to V and make sure, blah, blah, blah. Next thing we know, V's in Bali, right? Right. Oh my God, etc. But everyone's on high alert. Pac H is telling me, don't worry, yeah. I've got I sitting there with a gun, plus his mate, who is the nephew of one of the oldest gangs in Indonesia, a very famous gang, who Indo-Chinese, and he has agreed to be my driver, and he's also tooled up, right? Okay, and I'm just like, oh my God, And so I had my laptop and I bought a speaker, so I was just DJing all the time, and just to pass the time and stuff. And anyway, so Pac H comes, and they're like, right, when's the money coming? So in amongst all of this, right, on the journey back of the funds, there's 2 bank holidays in 2 different countries.
Oh, ouch.
So that's 48 hours worth of time that you have to negotiate with Pac H as to why the money's not there and that there's nothing wrong, right? Thank God for this guy, Pat Madday, who was able to understand it and then translate it properly and make sure. So, Pac H is always just very cotton, just giving you the eye. Any inkling of a lie, you're done, mate, right? So luckily, he believed me, and so he should, yeah. So anyway, the money's tipped up, life is good.
The money turned up?
Yeah, the money turned up.
Did the atmosphere completely change then?
Atmosphere completely changes, right? I've got the head of immigration for Indonesia and the head of immigration for Bali come down to the hotel. They're getting weighed out. Everybody's having drinks. Flat caps there. You're a good man, G. You're a good man. I'm like, yeah, I know. Tell me about it. All this other crap I don't know about. Okay, Mr. G, we have another job for you.
Was this Pac H talking to you now?
It's Pac H.
Was he happy then?
Yeah, he was happy, mate. He was happy as a pig in because he's put his name on it. Do you know what I mean? And, one thing that I always said is Pac H is a fair guy. He will make sure everybody gets paid out. Probably, once again, in that world, your reputation is everything, right?
That's why he's the leader, yeah.
Yeah, so his word and everybody getting weighed out properly is very important to him. So anyway, we've got through all of that drama, but there's still this background drama because of the difference in the amount that they were originally told that they were going to get. Now, with a difference in it, because the money's been on 2 journeys instead of 1. So it's been clipped again, right? Yeah? So again, there's a little bit of, have you, had to sit there and explain it all again and again and again. Then Pac H is coming to the hotel to see you, Mr. G, blah, blah, blah. By this time, P yeah, has re-emerged, and I've told him I'm back in Bali. He's jumped straight on a motorbike and come and moved into the villa with me, right?
Scottish guy.
The Scottish guy, yeah, right? And he's desperate for an introduction to Pack H, yeah?
Bad news.
You know what I mean? So all these guys that are running around town, I know this, I know, blah. No, you fucking don't. But also, secondly, look, I'm not bigging myself up or anything, but it's the head of an organisation that deals with the money, right? So I never spoke to any of the people down the chain. I only ever spoke to and knew the guy giving the nod on the money, who is in charge, basically, right? And so from that, obviously, you know, develop a relationship with them. And this is the guy that all these wannabes are trying to meet, trying to impress, trying to get on the map with, blah, blah, blah. So P's jumped straight on. He's in the villa now, right? Yeah? So then Pack H has come over, and we've got another job for you. Okay, $2 million that they need, right, coming into Bali. Okay, yeah, no, I can do that. We shake hands on it and everything. The next day was my birthday. He came and picked me up. Pack H took me out for my birthday with the heads of the immigration. We're in this restaurant. P's joined us. And on the way back, he goes, "You're the king of Bali, mate." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "That's just Pack H that's brought you out. You know, had a birthday cake, all this sort of thing." Obviously, I'm like looking at it like these guys are trying to keep me sweet. You know what I mean? I'm not getting carried away in my head at all, or not seeing things for what they are, right? Yeah, but just playing along, thank you very much, and blah, 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 blah. At this point, my ability to get white was somewhat dampened because I was in secret, right? Where I couldn't tell anyone where I was. I was in this villa hidden away with bodyguards, you know, etc., 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 right? So I couldn't really ring, "All right, mate, do you mind dropping off," or whatever, right? So P was serving up a little bit, as he did anyway, because he was under the protection of his lot, yeah? And this is when I tried shabu for the first time.
I knew P was going to be your downfall.
Yeah, right? So, and also I'd just been paid out, right? So...
Should have had Pack H's guys, not let him in the house.
Mate, you know what I mean? Yeah? Anyway, so this is when I first, like, tried shabu. And then...
does that make you up or down, or just...
it makes you up, big
Up.
time. But for a very prolonged period of time. It's... isn't it, right?
Yeah,
So... it won't get you as high as smokable white. It's slightly below that, but
It lasts.
it lasts a very, very long time, right? And I started hammering that the same as I did with the white, right? So I was going through grams of it, mate. And, you know, 0.2 of a gram of that will keep you up for days, mate, right? I was smashing the balls out of it, but also I was being very generous with everyone around me. They were all partaking in it. I was paying for everything. I also had to pay for this villa that I was in as well, right? And, you know, give whoever was on duty a bit of money and some food and blah, 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 all the rest of it. Then I's coming in after going out with whatever he has to do during the day and coming back and giving me reports on V. V's now in Bali, right? Meanwhile, I find out my villa has been completely stripped of every single possession I ever had. And I used to have really nice things that I worked hard for a good many years. And they got them all, everything. I used to have a very expensive wardrobe. They'd taken the lot. Even got as far as to, like, take my wife's personal makeup bag.
Whose crew took that? Everything?
V.
V's crew took everything.
Yeah. Between V and P, and I don't know, I wasn't there, yeah, right? Okay, they had parties there when I was there, you know, all this sort of stuff, yeah. When I wasn't there, when I was back in Jakarta, they completely stripped the villa out of everything, mate, right? Everything I ever owned, gone. So anyway, I was coming back and giving reports that, Pack H is, look, Mr. G, don't worry, I will go and talk to V, tell him no, etc. But V's still pushing back, yeah? And now V's starting to cuddle up with the other mafia there, yeah? So anyway, long story short is, at this point, I just had a Volkswagen Combi 1973 lowlight, beautiful, fully restored, yeah? And Pack H got my motorbikes back, 2 of my motorbikes. The other 2 that were in Jakarta, said he was going to get back. But he got a couple of my motorbikes back that I had delivered to the villa there. And also I went and picked up my Combi van, yeah? Anyway, we get back to the villa, I comes in, V's got the security footage of you picking up your Combi van from the garage, the CCTV footage, right? And is now looking for it and all this. I'm like, how the hell did he get that? Right? What the hell, right? What on earth is going on? Again, yeah? Okay? Yeah? So I know that I'm the golden goose at this point, right? Because I've doing this bit of money, blah, blah, blah. And there's no way these guys... Anyway, the bit of the worry is when that ends, yeah? So I kept it in my head to make sure that there was ongoing business with Mr. Pack H, so that it would be in his interest to make sure that I was well looked after on an ongoing basis, yeah? And at this point, I started having meetings with his son and some other organisations there, yeah? And I was chatting away with I, right? And basically, you've got the military police there, you've got Polder, Polsec, Polres, that are all different factions, and immigration, that all need this solution, shall we say. And they'd all found out that immigration had managed to find a solution. And so we were kind of trying to set it up so that I would be able to do this for each one of these factions, yeah, and Pack H being the fixer for all of it, right? And so I felt extremely well protected, actually, yeah, right? And also the potential of being able to exist in Bali without any dramas whatsoever, yeah, was right there, you know what I mean? And so, anyway, managed to complete the 2 mil for immigration. I'm sitting there, my guy's flying in from Singapore, blah, blah, blah. I won't go into too much detail. Weighing them out, taking pictures of it all. And I'm just sitting there going, this is ridiculous, right? This works like this, yeah? And one of their main concerns at the time was making sure that the money got there for the election, because they're all trying to secure their jobs and their places, with the election and whatever that takes to achieve it, right? None of my business, yeah? Anyway, so did that. So at this point, I'm told that V has gone away. I don't need to really worry about him. And I started having lots of meetings with Pack H's son and other people that were all Indonesian. So there was a big problem with language, right? Plus the work had picked up so much that I kind of needed some help. So I asked if he could help find a PA for me, yeah, which he did, right? And this particular girl turned out to be my downfall, mate, big time. What? So she was originally from Jakarta. She was living in Bali, and she, I think, I'm not incorrect to say, and sadly enough, she had gone through the child situation, and on her arm was tattooed who her owners were.
Oh my goodness.
And things like that, right? Yeah. So I wanted to help this girl. She was very good at English, right? Yeah. And she was quite clever. So I wanted to help this girl, and and show her, a different way of life, you know what I mean? So I always, treated her very differently from probably what she was used to all her life, right? And was very conscious of that. But she was also a little bit crazy, shall we say. And, there were some nights where she had, disappeared off, because we used to work at night quite a lot, obviously, because of foreign exchange in London, blah, 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 blah. Quite a lot of meetings were in the evenings, etc. And, that I think that was, her old life knocking on her door, blah, 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 blah. And so then, at this point, I called my mate from Malaysia to come over, who had previously been living with me. He'd also tried to F me over, but, let bygones be bygones. So now I had P and AB from Malaysia, who I flew over in this villa. And then this girl, all of a sudden, got kicked out of where she was, so she needed somewhere to stay. So I went and found a bigger villa where we all had our own rooms, etc., right? So I'm burning through the money at this point. I'm paying all these guys' salaries. I'm paying the bodyguard. I'm buying all the food. I'm paying for the rent of the villa, etc., etc., etc. And I wasn't particularly careful with the money either, because I was of the impression that I had a lot more work coming. So these villas that I was renting were top-notch, massive places, etc. And I suggested that we move up into an area in Bali that there's no gangs. It's where the head of all the gangs live, and they live in peace and harmony up there, but there's no shenanigans up there, and it would be safe. So did that for a little while, and A, B and P, they didn't like this girl, mate, one bit, right? And they said that she was a problem and trouble. But from my angle, all of these guys used to complain about one another all the time, because it was obvious that they just wanted to be the only one with me to reap the rewards with, right? And so it was quite a difficult sort of situation to manage in terms of understanding that's what everybody's game is, but trying to keep the peace between everybody and trying to let everybody know that they had their own important role. But they were all backstabbing one another and all the rest of it. But, these guys had this real problem with this girl. And, look, at the end of the day, because of her situation, I let that get the better of me and say, look, we need to try and help this girl, right? Anyway, about a month after I'd finished the work for immigration, someone had seen some sightings of V near the villa and stuff like that.
No!
And it turns out this girl knows him.
No!
And used to mess around with him a bit, doing whatever they do, I don't know, right? There'd been some dramas.
So you had an insider.
Yeah, V's pulled a gun in the club somewhere over this girl, I don't know what, right? So, I'm talking to who is the guy that's, so because he's a big lump or whatever, he used to protect this girl, right? Yeah. And obviously he's wanted her out of the life as well. It's just a discussion that we had. And, that's what we tried to do. Anyway, we then moved to another villa, which was like the smallest one that we'd moved into.
Can I just ask, what's the attitude of your wife at this point?
So my wife is in Singapore.
Yeah.
Yeah. She, just was, what are you doing? Who are you with? Package, blah, blah. Our relationship was strained at this point, right?
Does she just think you're going to finish all this work and come home?
Yeah.
Is that what's the plan is?
Yeah, basically. Or that I can sort things out in Bali enough so that they can come back there.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. She originally told my security guys when they drove her to the airport that she was just going back to Singapore for a couple of weeks. and then she would be back. So I think she was waiting for everything to cool down, calm down a bit, and for me to stop doing so much drugs, right? Yeah, and anyway, suddenly I've accumulated all these people, right? And yeah, I've sent money home and like all the rest of it. I'm still talking to her every day, yeah, but obviously I'm under stress where I am, and you know, if pack 8 says jump, you got to jump, you got to go here, you got to go there, blah blah blah. And she was stressing, you know, and rightly so as well, yeah. And God bless her. And I was desperate to get in a situation where they'd come back, right? I didn't like being around all these people. You know, this isn't me. I'm a family man, and all the rest of it. But I was on this path where I felt that I kind of had to do this to get back in that position, you know. Anyway, so a couple of nights later, I was up in bed, and I got the dogs back with me at this point. Bless them as well, Daisy and Poppy. And I was up in bed, and AB was down in his room, the girl was down in her room. I had gone out for the night, and suddenly there's a knock at my door. So I was upstairs in a room upstairs, all the other rooms were downstairs in the villa, yeah? Suddenly there's a knock at my door. So I lock my door at night, whatever, right? And I'm like, yeah, hi, who is it? It's the police. So I'm quickly like looking around the room thinking, that was the one day where I hadn't done white, right? It was the one day where I hadn't done it, yeah? So I'm thinking, oh Christ. So I open the door and he's standing there with the girl, right? And he goes, right, you know, it's the police, shows me about coming in, right? There's white in here, there's white in here. All the lights go on, and he starts looking around everywhere. And then I'd bought some glue, like, because I like do art and stuff, yeah. So he found this big white like bag. He's like, what, is this white? Is this white? I'm going, no, it's not. He knows that isn't. So he starts looking around, starts getting frustrated. So then he goes to the bins, right? Now, part of this girl's job was to tidy up as well, in terms of tidy up the villa, blah, 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 blah. I knew that I was quite messy, and so he used to come in every morning and sweep my room and clear away all the empty packets and everything, right? And make sure that there wasn't anything around or whatever, yeah? Anyway, he's gone in the bin, found some empty packets. You're under arrest. Oh my God. So I have to stand outside the room. Meanwhile, this girl's standing there, right? And long story short, I used to pay her salary like a week in advance. She's gone and bought a load of shabu and split it up into different packets to sell that are all over the villa. And she'd bought some synthetic green as well, which is known as gorilla, which they found. So we were both handcuffed up and everything. Meanwhile, my mate AB's come downstairs. He's going, what's going on? I go, mate, you tell me what's going on. He said, well, when the police came in, they were saying, where's the girl? Where's the girl? Right? So they've gone off and found her and then come up to my room or whatever. And, you know, there are these empty packets of white and all the rest of it. I'm just sitting there thinking, it's on top big time here, right? And my mate's going, look, they want the girl, it's not you or whatever. Then they could all come down, put me in plastic cuffs, yeah, right? Now, being in Indonesia, it's not like over here where you get put in the back of a van. You go on the back of a moped. So I'm like this, said, right, pack a bag. So I sort of slung as much, you know, of my things in the bag as I could. So I had 3 phones, right, and some chargers. And at this point, I had very nice things. I had diamond earrings, I had designer jewellery, bracelets, necklaces, everything like that. And they're like, right, pack a bag. At this point, this girl seems very accustomed to what is going on, right? Like this is not new to her. And she's like, look, just don't panic, do this, do that. And I just start thinking, God, yeah, can see it all, right? We get down to the police station, Polder, yeah, so I'm transported on the back of a bike like this, riding through all the streets, all the other coppers, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just thinking, you know, we get to the police station, and there's a lawyer there waiting already who knows everything, right? Yeah, right? Complete fit up, mate. So I just said to him straight away, okay, look, mate, how much to walk out of here right now? He said $148,000, which miraculously was the commission off all the deals that I'd made, right? The exact amount, yeah. I'd spent the lot at this point, right? And I was like, right, okay. And, I really didn't know what was going on. I'd never been arrested in my life or, whatever, right? I'm suddenly down at Polder, which are like really harsh police, mate, in Bali, in the interview room with this lawyer. They're asking for money. They were waiting there already. So like my senses are like, who are these people? Should I trust them? Blah, blah, blah. And then end up sleeping up in the police workroom that night, yeah, with one of the policemen. So he's giving it all the where did you buy the stuff, all the rest of it. I think it was kind of lost on him. I said I got it off somebody called Paulos, yeah. Which is obviously Pablo. I mean, you get that straight away. None of them ever got it in all the time I was there. And, then they're asking the girl, where did she get it? She ordered it on the internet, blah, 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 which is how you do it over there. And I'm just thinking, what the hell? And so meanwhile, the lawyer's walking around, they've bought all the plastic bags with all the bongs in, yeah? There's 3 plastic bags full of bongs and paraphernalia, mate, right? Okay, meanwhile, the lawyer's walking around at the front pretending to smoke one of the... I'm like, mate, that's evidence, right? What are you doing with your fingerprints all over it? Yeah? None of these things are like bagged and tagged properly, anything like that, right? So they get these bags out on the table, and these were bags that were in the bin, and they scrape them all out and come up with 0.2 of a gram, right? It's reported on the... it says 0.8, but it wasn't. It was 0.2, right? And then they've got all her bits and pieces out and weighed all that up and everything. And I'm just thinking to myself at this point, this is game over. Do you know what I mean, right? So their process there is you get 7 days to pay them off, basically, before the paperwork goes official, and you have to go down that track, right? Which is more bribes for the police, the district attorney and the judge is the process. But if you can just make one payment within 7 days, they'll walk you out of there, mate, right? Anyway, I can't come up with $148,000 in 7 days. So during that time, they hold you downstairs in what they call is the aquarium, which is a big glass room, right? And at this point, it becomes very evident to me that this girl has been through this sort of thing before. Turns out this is her 5th time in prison, mate, right? And she's talking with all the locals and laughing away and blah, 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 blah. All the coppers knew her name, right? So it turns out, I found out later, she'd been busted about 3 or 4 days before, right? And this was her 5th time. They all know her. And so she fitted me up to try and get out of it.
What about Pack H in all this? Has he not come to your rescue?
So I'm saying to call Pack H, call Pack H. And I said to the lawyer, listen, I'm working for Pack H. Yeah, I don't think, I should be here and all this sort of stuff. And she basically said, we know who he is and we hate him. He's not allowed on the premises. Right? Yeah, so
a different mafia control those police.
A different one, yeah. And I'm like talking to I's coming to see me. I'm going, mate, get pack H, please get pack H. And so, look, the long and the short of it is pack H could have done something, but the cost was 500 million.
Which is what?
50 grand. So, you know, even if you are a face, you need to pay these guys, right? Or else nothing's happening.
So you weren't worth that much
no.
to him?
No.
At this point?
At this point. He couldn't come up. Exactly, right? Yeah, exactly. Not worth a bean, yeah? And so I'm sitting there, you know, just trying to take all this in. And then basically, I saying, look, you need to do a joint case with this girl, or else, you know, she could cause more trouble, yeah? And obviously at this point, you know, I don't want my missus to know about this, right? Or else, you know, there's going to be further problems. And so I was in there for a week, and this lawyer kept on bugging me to sign with them, and I didn't trust it. So I got to find me a different lawyer, yeah? This is where things even twist up even more. So he found me this lawyer, another lawyer, and I spoke to him. I said this and that, blah, blah, blah. And he had someone working for him. He spoke perfect English. So I was talking with this girl, saying, look, do we go with this lawyer, Edward, or do we go with these other people? Now, this guy, Edward, mate, is famous, yeah? He can walk you out of any situation for the right money, yeah? And he's famous for it. You know, that's what he does. But I didn't trust it, nor did I have the money. And I preferred this other guy that was a recommendation of I. You know, I didn't know whether these lawyers were plants, you know. And I could have, you know, I was being told up to 12 years, mate, right? So, anyway, I went with this other lawyer, yeah? And I'll never forget the day that we had to walk down from the aquarium, the observation, into the police jail. And that's when I knew I wasn't getting out of it. Up until that point, there was a chance Pack H was working away, I was working away, all these other people, blah, blah, blah. And there was a chance that I could, yeah. You know, it dawned on me that it wasn't. Meanwhile, this girl has proceeded to tell everyone that I'm her boyfriend, right, and is starting to cause trouble, yeah. Now, the jail in there, the women's jail and the men's jail are adjacent, and there's a barred window where you can talk to one another and stuff like that, right? And so I had to put up with this girl and all her nonsense, and she caused massive problems in there, mate. For all the prisoners, she's just off her rocker, this girl, and you know, needs psychiatric help. And that was when I was introduced to the corruption and the drug trade that exists hand in hand in the prison system and the political and police system in Bali and Indonesia. It's now the walk of shame from the aquarium to the police jail. This is before you get moved to prison. You still got to go to court, you still got to have your trial, you still got to get sentenced. And I'm being forced to be handcuffed to this girl that has ruined my life. The orange jumpsuit comes on, and there's a big car park to be waltzed through. I had paid for, at this point, a media blackout, right? So normally everyone's paraded in front of the press and all the rest of it, and I paid for that not to happen. But I was so paranoid about being photographed. I didn't want to be photographed like this or anything like that. And just that walk to the jail across the car park at Polder was a long walk. So I'm handcuffed and walking towards the police jail, and this is when I know I'm not getting out of this, and I'm gonna do some time. And we round the corner, and there's the male jail there, and there's 150 guys in there, all coming up to the bars, all shouting, "Baru, Baru, Baru, Baru," like this, and they're all tattooed up, they're all screaming in Indonesian. The prison guards are all speaking in Indonesian, they don't speak English. I've got my jumpsuit on, I'm covered in jewellery and diamond earrings, and I think, oh my God, what's going on here? So I just turned around and I said to the guard, "Can you take all this jewellery off me?" He took it off me. They're all at the gates like this going, "Baru, Baru, Baru." I'm thinking, oh my Lord, I'm going to get killed here. I'm looking in, and it looks like your worst nightmare, like you see in movies and in Prisoners Abroad or whatever it is. And the gates open and I get pushed in.
What a cliffhanger, man. Wow. Welcome to Locked Up in Indonesia Part 1. That was almost 4 hours long. It's gone like that. Imagine you guys are as gripped as I am. Giles is just such a superb storyteller. The level of detail, the way he set the table for his arrest, the enormity, the breadth, the scope of what he went through. We were there, the emotional ups and downs. His wife flies over, and it's nerve-wracking to think, what's V going to do next while his wife's there? He's almost out of it. He's done the deals for Pack H, and then gets sold up the river by his personal assistant. And it gets even 10 times crazier than we've heard so far. So stay tuned for part 2. Before we go, Giles, is there any way the people watching this can reach out to you and help you? And whatever links or contact you've got, we will put that in the description box below the video on YouTube so people can click on it or email you, whatever.
Yeah, certainly. I've got a very good friend of mine who actually runs a charity that helps prisoners, that is offering his banking facilities, etc., to help collect any donations or help that anybody wants to give me. And he'll make sure that that ends up in the right place and goes towards the right things, towards helping me get my life back. I think we'll put that in the bio.
And for the people wondering, we're going to get to where Giles is at now, but just in a few words, you're technically homeless right now, aren't you?
I am, yeah.
Yeah,
I am.
So any help would be appreciated.
Any help would be greatly appreciated. I just want my life back and I want my family back.
And what about work opportunities, if there's anything out there for you like that?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm obviously able to communicate quite well, and I've got some very good skill sets, not only within markets but interpersonal skills and sales skills, etc. And I'd be very grateful for any opportunities that could be given to me. I'll embrace them wholeheartedly.
So look, I've been speaking to Giles for months now. He is a sincere guy. He was riding high, but right now he is going through a lot. So anyone out there who can genuinely offer some help, please get in touch. Like I said, contact links will be in the description box below this video. Let us know in the comments what you thought, and let us know how gagging you are for part 2. And Giles, give us a hug, man. Wow, what a story. Phenomenal, brother. Bloody hell. Whoa. Mental, man. Mental.